Hello everyone, and welcome to another part of What If Nazarick Was in Game of Thrones? This amazing story was written by Azazel72. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Sorcerer's Kingdom / Nazarick 10th floor. Ains was studying the reports concerning Malik activities in Mir. Albedo and Demiurge were standing alongside him as well. After reading the last parts of Malik reports, which concerned her action to buy slaves, and the divination attempt made on her, Ains turned his attention to the two sage individuals besides him. So what do you think? Despite the fact that I decreed slavery to be outlawed 1,000 years ago, Malik has bought 100 slaves. She also reported of a spying attempt on her. Albedo bowed her head slightly and answered, I believe you don't need to concern yourself about this. After all, she must have a good reason behind her actions. As for the divination attempt on her, it is no surprise. We knew that sooner or later someone will try to spy on her. That is why she asked for Lady Karasu. Ains nodded his head in agreement. Demiurge also agreed with Albedo's statement. Ains Sama, I think we should focus our efforts on finding the traitors who seeks to undermine you. Malik Sama decided to act as bait to lure them out. But still, there is no sign of the enemy. And what do you suggest? If you, who is most intelligent mind of Nazarick and the Minister of Security and Intelligence, haven't managed to locate them, how can we find them? I do have a suggestion to make, but it is a shameful course of action for a subordinate to advise their master of. Albedo glared at Demiurge. Ains paid no heed to her and asked Demiurge with a gentle voice. There is no need to be shy. No doubt you are only thinking about benefits of the Sorcerer's Kingdom and Nazarick. Be at ease and speak your mind plainly. Demiurge held a deep breath and with low voice continued. I think you will need to take action personally. Malik Sama went to a foreign world in order to provoke the enemy in coming out of their holes. If you were to leave the Sorcerer's Kingdom as well. Before he could finish, however, Albedo shouted. Demiurge, how can you even suggest something this shameful? You are asking Ains Sama to use himself as a bait. Albedo, calm down. But Ains Sama, I said calm down. Demiurge suggested something that was on my mind as well. I too thought about this. Of course that was a lie, Ains said to calm Albedo's anger. Demiurge fixed his glasses. He looked at Ains with admiration and respect. I see, as expected of Ains Sama. You have already thought about leavening the Sorcerer's Kingdom for Middle-earth. What did he mean by that? Wasn't I supposed to join Malik in Mir? Before he could ask this question, however, someone else interrupted. What do you mean, Demiurge? Wasn't Ains Sama supposed to join Malik Sama in Essos or do something in Westeros? Thanks, Ains said in his hearth. Demiurge glared at Albedo. Albedo, Malik Sama has yet to secure a stronghold for us on the other side. She told me that she had to ready the people of that world for Ains Sama arrival. If Ains Sama were to act on his own, it might compromise Malik Sama plans. On the other hand, the enemy would feel hesitant to attack Ains Sama and Malik Sama when they are together. But with Malik Sama in Essos and Westeros and Ains Sama in Middle-earth, and the Sorcerer's Kingdom rulership absent of their seat of power, they will surely think of this as a golden chance to strike us. Indeed. That's how it is, Albedo. While I am away at Middle-earth, I can also add several more lands to our kingdom. I am certain that you and Demiurge can manage the Sorcerer's Kingdom just fine in my absence. Thank you, Ains Sama. But what will happen if the enemy strikes at you while you are away in an unknown world? If we were to lose you? Don't worry, Albedo. I have already picked a suitable number of high-level vassals to watch over Ains Sama and Malik Sama in secret. Even in the worst-case scenario, they will act as meat shield to protect them. All right, as expected of Demiurge. Now I can have some free time and new adventures. Visit another world. Learn new things. Besides, while I am away doing diplomatic work for the Sorcerer's Kingdom, I can leave its management and paperwork to Albedo, Demiurge, and Pandora's actor. Yes, it can't be helped. It's not like I am trying to run from my work or anything. Of course, as expected of Demiurge. But just in case, break the news to Malik and others as well. I will come to visit her in Mir at the future when she has what she promised me when I agreed to let her go. Understood. When will you leave for Middle-earth? Ains thought for a moment. In 3 days, I think. It is best not to delay it more than we have to. Just make sure everything remains in order while I am away. Yes, Ains Sama. And summon Malik here. I have important matters to discuss with her before I leave. Tomorrow. After receiving Albedo message, Malik returned to Nazarick in order to report her work in person and to visit her father. She directly teleported to the 10th floor and asked the maids of Ain's whereabouts. She was told that Ains was waiting for her in his private room. So Malik went to his father's room, where she saw several 8-edge assassins standing guard. Once the 8-edge assassins saw Malik, they bowed their head in respect. Malik saluted them as well. "Welcome back, Malik-sama." "Thank you. I see that you are standing guard as always." "Is my father in his room?" "Yes, but he ordered us not to allow anyone enter his room." "Why?" "He said he is conducting a secret ceremony, one that no one shall see." "Right?" Malik turned her back to the assassins. She tried very hard not to laugh, but she couldn't resist the urge to smile. A few moments later, she turned her back to the assassins. "I understand. This is indeed a secret ceremony that only the Supreme Ones know of. I am aware of this secret as well, so it won't be a problem if I were to enter. You can stand aside. But Malik-sama, if Ain-sama, don't worry about it. I will take the full responsibility for it. You just stand guard here and make sure no one else enter this room." "No one. You understand?" "Yes. Please forgive us for our transgressions." The 8-edge assassins stood aside and allowed Malik to enter. Once Malik entered Ain's room, the 8-edge assassins resumed their guard. Malik silently entered her father's private chambers. She looked around and found him leaning on his bed, reading a book. The book title was How to Make 1,000 Cakes. "Hello." "Ah." Ains jumped out of his bed in fear and hid the book under his pillow. "Who, what? That was you, Malik?" For a moment there, I remembered what surprise felt like. "Damn it. You shouldn't enter my room without knocking first." Malik smiled maliciously. She looked at her father's nervous attire and said, "If I did that, then it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Still, it's nice to catch you off your guard from time to time. If I had a heart, it would have jumped into my mouth by now. You really shouldn't do that anymore." "Fine, fine. But I make no promises." "Still, why were you reading a book about cooking? I thought you favored manga or strategy books, or perhaps those books about how to be a better boss." Ains left his bed and stood beside it. He looked at Malik and said, "I finished reading all those books a long time ago. There wasn't many books in the library for me to read, so I took this one. It reminds me of the meals your mother made when." This time, Ains turned silent. But Malik's face changed its warm and smiling look into a cold and depressed one. "Father, I believe we agreed not to discuss anything about our past life anymore. It has been more than 1,000 years, and you still hold to the old memories. You still let them haunt you." Ains walked toward Malik and looked her in the eye. "What about you? Are you sure that memories of past don't haunt you as well, Misa?" Upon being addressed by her real name, Malik's looks changed again. She became upset every time she heard her true name, because it made her remember the losses she had suffered in her past life. She directed her anger toward her father, Suzuki Satoru. "No, my name is not Misa. It's Malik. Malik Almut. And it's been so for more than 1,000 years. Just as your name has been Ain's, old gown." When Ains saw how upset and angry his daughter, he regretted his poor choice of words. He tried to comfort her. I'm sorry. Lower your voice. You don't want anyone else to hear us, do you?" Malik looked at Ains again. "No matter how many times we wish for it, those days are never going to come back. Your old friends are gone, father. Mother is gone as well. She died in that shithole of a world that we lived in because of the harsh environment her company made her suffer through. I still remember the day that we spread her ashes in the sea. I was only 6 years old, but that time has long passed. We are the gods here. We can make the world in our image. You are the sorcerer king, and I am your sword. Far more than we could have ever been in that life." Ains was at a loss for words. He had no idea what to say to Malik now. He decided to change the topic. "All right, calm down. I asked you here for something else. There is something that we need to discuss. It concerns our future developments." Malik closed her eyes for a moment. After taking a deep breath, which was totally out of habit and unnecessary for an undead being like her, she regained her composure. "All right then. I'm listening." After exiting Ain's room, Malik decided to leave Nazarick for Mir again. But before she could leave, she ran into Demiurge. "Malik-sama, what an uncanny coincidence. I was just looking for you." "Demiurge, I am pleased to see you as well. What is the matter?" "I have been reading the reports you sent. I believe I have found a way to accelerate the speed of progress for our plans for the city of Mir. May I have a moment of your time? Malik answered with pure interest. Of course, I would love to hear it. Mir. After her work in Nazarick was finished, Malik went to the gate room in the Ministry of Magic and returned to the Great White Villa. Once she found herself in the gate room in the villa, she went back to her office and began working on writing further orders to her subordinate. Paper after paper, she filled them all. She was burying her head in her work in order to clear her head of her previous encounter with Ains. She was writing an order instructing the merchant division to use some of their newly bought slaves who knew how to write and read to be sent as messengers to the magisters and nobles who had a large number of slaves in their employment, when the sounds of the knocking on the door brought her back to her senses. Your Grace, may I enter? She recognized the owner of that voice. It was the head of the merchant division, Robet Sami. Come in. Sami entered the room and bowed to Malik. I hope your journey to Nazarick was pleasant, Your Grace. Yes, it was. If you don't mind, get to the point. There is a lot of work to be done here. We are entering the next phase of our work. Is that so? Then we shall ready ourselves for the future developments. Oh, I almost forgot. A messenger from the magisters has come here. He said that the 7 magisters have sent an important message for you. Malik looked at Sami for a moment. If it is indeed important, then let him in. Sami went outside again. A moment later, he returned with another man. Greetings, Your Grace, Princess Malik Al-Mut. Welcome to Great White Villa. What is the matter now? Did the good magisters of this city finally got tired of our presence? Surely you must jest, Your Grace. Your presence is nothing but a blessing for all of Mir. The 7 magisters invite you to participate in the coming council tomorrow. We hope that you will honor us with your presence. Malik leaned back on her chair. The 7 Magisters' Council is about governing this city. I am not even a citizen of Mir. Why would they request my presence? I don't know, Your Grace. All I know is the message that is given to me. Saying this, the messenger presented a parchment to Malik. Robet Sami took the parchment instead and presented it to Malik with all due respect. Malik opened the parchment and after reading its context, thank you for delivering this message. Please inform the 7 that I shall be honored to attend to this meeting. See to it that this man receive a tip for his efforts. Yes, Your Grace. Thank you for your generosity. The messenger then left the room. Malik handed over the order that she was writing to Sami. Impart this order to your subordinate as well. The instruction is all written here. Yes, Your Grace. Robet Sami left the room, leaving Malik in thought about the work that lay ahead of her. I should visit Karasu as well. See if she has found anything yet. She thought. Magisters' Council meeting. Malik entered the Great Hall of Mir. It was a place where only the magisters would gather in order to discuss the state of affairs. But today they had invited someone who was not a member of their council. In normal times, many would raise their eyebrow as to why the magisters of Mir would invite someone else into their council, and a woman on top of that. But these were not normal times now. As soon as Malik entered the hall, the 7 magisters rose from their seat to greet her. Welcome, Your Grace. We are honored that you have accepted our invitation. Please have a seat. All of the people present in this room were high-class nobles and merchants of this city, the wealthiest and most powerful people in Mir. The reason that such proud people were showing such respect to Malik was not mere courtesy, but because they did not want to displease someone who has brought great wealth and unique trade goods in their city. In truth, many of them did not feel positive toward Malik. She casually walked to the end of table and took the highest placed seat in the room. From her attitude, it was obvious who was the higher party here. The honor is mine. I hope we can skip wordplay and arrive at the issue at hand. May I know why I have been called here? The leader of this council, Arid van Razor, looked at his fellow magisters. There are terrible news, Your Grace. We just received word that the Khalasar of Kalpono is marching toward Mir. Some 30,000 strong. Malik shrugged her shoulders. So what? As far as I know, it is a common occurrence in this part of the world. The horse lords come, you give them gifts, the horse lords go. Another magister, Darius, looked at Malik with clear annoyance on his face. Yes, we always give the Khals lavish gifts to prevent their Khalasars from their sacking and burning the city. But this time is different. We send them thousands of salves. But they rejected our offer. It seems this new Kalpono likes to show his Khalasar a good fight, in order to strengthen his position and increase his reputation among the Dothraki. Another magister added. Kalpono was recently named a Khal. He was a blood rider to Khal Drogo. But I heard that Khal Drogo died of illness. Now his Khalasar is split between his blood riders. Khal Pono has taken 10,000s of Drogo warriors and added them to his Khalasar. What matters is, Khal Pono is now marching toward Mir with 30,000 screamers at his back. What shall we do now? Malik, who was listening to their conversation, answered calmly. If you can't avoid them, why not fight? The room went silent. The magisters stared at Malik with open eyes, and then as if to represent all of them. What are you saying? We don't have the strength to defeat 30,000 Dothraki. Malik remained as calm as ever. So? You say they are coming to raid your city anyway. So you can at least put up a fight. We don't have an army to do so. What about the free companies? Don't you hire sellswords to guard this city or fight on the disputed lands? The Golden Company is far away, doing another job for Volantis. The current companies present, Windblown and Long Lances, are not numerous enough to put up a fight. The Windblown has only 2,000 men, infantry, and cavalry. The Long Lances have 800 cavalry. They would be outnumbered by 1 to 10. The sellswords have no royalty. The moment they face the Dothraki, they will flee. What about the Unsullied? Don't you employ them as guards? The wealthiest of nobles and merchants employ them as their household guards. Even if we were to combine them all, they would be 2,000 at best. Malik leaned back. So what are you going to do? Adrivan looked at his fellows, and with a low voice answered. We shall evacuate the city. Take all of our wealth and whoever of our free citizen we can outside of the city. Our ships should be able to handle it. The others nodded in agreement. But Malik, whose displeasure was on open display, looked directly at Adrivan. What about the people who can't leave? There are tens of thousands of people who won't be able to evacuate. What about them? We take whoever and whatever we can with us. We will leave in a few days. I suggest you leave the city as well. There won't be anything left when the Dothraki come. Malik rose from her seat. She looked at the magisters and with a confident voice said, In all my life, I have never ran from a battle. And in all of my life, I have never once lost a war. Flee if you like, I won't. Don't be naive. There are more than 30,000 of them out there. You don't have the numbers. Let them come. That will be my problem to deal with. You can flee if you like. I will stand here and fight. If they will strike at Mir, I will strike back and strike hard, and leave a feast for the seabirds. And with that Malik stood up from her seat and left the room in anger. The magisters could only look with pity as she left the hall. That woman is crazy and headstrong. She would be insane if she actually stay. That was just a bluff. Sure, she likes the sound of war horns and banners flying in the wind. But when it comes to butcher work, she will turn and run. Malik returned to Villa. She went to her room and thought about what she heard from the magisters today. She was quite serious about her decision to stop the Dothraki. After all, there was no value to rule over a ruin. But it was also the truth that she did not possess an army to defend the city from such a massive army. Despite her high level of strength, Malik only had 30 levels as a warrior. Even though her abnormal physical strength allowed her to fight against high-level opponents, her true power was in her commanding abilities and summoning powers. Since she had focused on getting summoner and necromancer job classes, she did not have any attack magic like her father. Other than summoning spells, the only magic she could use was a limited number of defensive and healing spells and teleportation magic. In single combat, she knew that she could only beat someone below level 80. But in battlefield, she was confident that with enough preparation, she could even fight against 3, or perhaps 4, level 100 players. Her mind went back to the time she spoke with Demiurge about how he managed to find a way to accelerate the speed of their plans for Mir. Why couldn't he consider my abilities before dumping me in such a situation? How am I going to win this war without an army at my back? It was rather easy to bring a legion of Nazarick through the gate and be done with it. Even with 300 of mid-tier undead, she was certain that they could win easily against the Dothraki horde. But Demiurge opposed the idea and insisted that Malik should defend the city with local forces. First of all, I should gather an army. But whom? Suddenly, she remembered something the magisters said about the free companies located nearby, and the Unsullied the nobles used as guards. She immediately called the spymaster to her room. After a few moments, the leader of spy division arrived. He bowed before Malik. May I know why you have summoned your humble servant Malik Sama? Are you familiar with the sellswords companies that are camped near the city? Yes, of course. Right now, the Windblown and the Long Lances are camped near the city. What do you know about the Windblown Company? The Windblown are a mercenary company of 2,000 mounted horse and foot soldiers. They are found in Essos near the Free Cities. They are led by a captain known as the Tattered Prince. And who is this Tattered Prince? The Tattered Prince, also known as Rags or Tatters, is the first and only commander of the Windblown. He is well past 60 and keeps his true name to himself. In 262, when the Tattered Prince was 23, the Magisters of Pintos chose him to be their new prince, mere hours after they had beheaded the previous one. Instead of accepting their offer and be their disposable puppet, he fled to the disputed lands and never returned to Pintos, taking up the life of a cell's word. Over the years he rode with the Second Sons, the Iron Shields, and the Maiden's Men. Circa 270, along with 5 brothers-in-arms, he established the Windblown. But right now he is the only survivor of the 5 and the sole leader of the Windblown. He sounds like an interesting man. What about the Long Lances? They have 800 riders and are being led by Gilo Regan. I am afraid that not much is known about him, other than the fact he fights for gold and women, like most sellswords out there. Do you think you can arrange a meeting with them for me? Yes, of course. May I ask for what purpose? Just tell them that I have an offer of employment for them, one that they can't refuse. And also, call Robert Sami as well. Tell him to gather his merchants and go visit every noble in this city who is unsullied under their command. I want to buy them all. The leader of Windblown Mercenary Company, the Tattered Prince, was brought to the White Villa. He entered the yard and saw that the leader of Long Lances was there as well. Gilo Regan, what are you doing here? Upon being addressed by name, Regan looked around only to saw a fellow sellsword leader before him. I could ask the same of you, Tattered Prince. I am invited to this house by its owner. The same applies to me. Did she offer you employment as well? Yes. If she is hiring both of us, it must be for something big. Just as they were conversing with each other, a man in a butler uniform arrived before them. Her Grace, Malik Elmut Sama, is waiting for you. If you would please come this way. The two of them followed the old butler and entered the villa. After a few minutes they were brought to a large room when, "Welcome, come in. I've been waiting for your arrival for quite some time." The door was closed behind them, and they were left alone with Malik. The two of them looked around in fear. "What is this? We were told you had an offer for us." "I do, but the word said here must not leave this room." Malik smiled evilly at the two of them, and when they saw the light in Malik's eyes begun to shine like a star's, the two of them were gripped by fear. Robert Sami was waiting at the entrance of Malik's room. He came here to report the buying of the Unsullied. "When can I go in? I grow tired of waiting." But the Death Cavalier who stood guard at the entrance said, "Malik Sama is meeting with the leaders of Windblown and Long Lances. She gave us strict orders. We can't allow entry to anyone else until they leave. Since when she prefer the company of sellswords to that of her loyal servants?" Sami thought to himself. After a few minutes, the Tattered Prince and Gilo Regan exited the room. They both had a weird and exotic look on their face. Robert Sami looked at the two of them. For some reason, he felt that something was strange about them. "Malik Sama have given permission. You may enter." Robert entered the room and saw Malik sitting on her chair with a smile on her face. "Your Grace, your humble servant is here to report." Before he could finish, Malik interrupted him. "I know. You managed to buy all of the Unsullied. I saw them at the yard." "Yes, Your Grace. Most nobles felt hesitant about selling them, but when we showed them chests full of gold, they gave in and sold them all." "Good. Now we should prepare ourselves for battle. The Magisters of Mir are about to flee the city on ships. Most of the nobles will follow them as well. Soon, the only ones left in the city will be slaves and the poor free men who can leave. Because a Dothraki horde is approaching the city. So why are we staying? Not only you ordered us to stay, you also bought the sellswords and the Unsullied. Do you intend to fight the Dothraki?" "No, I intend to destroy them. For now, we have to bring shipments of provisions from the Sorceress Kingdom for our soldiers. 2,800 sellswords and 2,000 Unsullied. We have less than 5,000 soldiers against 30,000 Dothraki. We should prepare ourselves for a hard fight." "Yes, Your Grace." Preparation for war. The flatlands/north of the Mir. Kalpono was siding in his tent with his son Mako, Blood Riders, and several other Dothraki. His mind was focused on the war that would soon come, and the glories and gifts that he and his Khalasar would earn when they conquered Mir. He had gathered his blood riders and several other warriors in his Khalasar to discuss his war plans with them. Well, can't really call it a war. It will be more like a practice fight for my Dothraki. He thought to himself, if they are smart, they will surrender without a fight. If they are fools, then we will have a little practice and a chance to wet our blades with blood. I hope they are fools. When we bring their broken gods and idols back to the vast Dothrak and enslave their people, all other calls will know better than to interfere with our great call Pono. I for one haven't had a good fight in months. I can't wait to shed some blood in battle. Pono was listening to brags of his blood riders. He was rather pleased that they were all in good mood and were ready for battle. Don't let your guard down like that. If they were to hire several thousand mercenaries and the Golden Company, this might turn into a hard fight. The others looked at Pono. His son Mako was the first to talk. You are right, father. But there is no need to worry. None of those mercenaries are a match for any Dothraki warrior. Besides, the Golden Company is far away in Volantis. And from what I heard, all those magisters are taking their perfumed asses and running away with their ships. Taking Mir is going to be as easy as taking a horde of Lazarine. Lamb men, people living south of the Dothraki, see whom are frequently enslaved by them. Pono, don't forget. It was your idea to take Mir. You were the one who said we are going to need to win a battle somewhere. If you want the other calls and cities to take you seriously enough, they need to know what will happen if they mess with you. Besides, those magisters really insulted us by offering a few thousand slaves as gift. They should have given us 10,000 at least. But now we will take all of their slaves and their wealth for ourselves. The other blood riders nodded in agreement. Pono stood up from his seat and turned his attention to them and to all of the Dothraki who were in his tent. He gathered his strength and put it in his voice. We ride for Mir tomorrow morning. When I get there, I will kill anyone who stand against us and our victory. Oh, the Dothraki yelled. I will tear down their stone houses, kill their men, rape their women, take their children as slave, and bring their broken gods back to vast Dotark. Oeoweowa. And when we are done, I will take my Khalasar to the east, north, south, and even Westeros. This I swear before the Mother of Mountains, as the stars look down in witness. Oea. Roear. The Dothraki all roared and screamed. They left the tent and started to get ready to march. At dawn, 30,000 screamers marched toward the defenseless Mir. They raided and raped all the villages that were in their patch and burned them to the ground. Before long, they would be at the very gates of Mir itself. The Great White Villa. The gathered soldiers of windblown and long lances camped outside of the city walls, while the Unsullied were gathered in the yard of the Great White Villa. The way they stood in place in neat formation and with discipline was worthy of praise. Malik was watching this group of elite soldiers from her office window, alongside Robet Sami and Caruso. But all she saw was a group of weaklings. Sure, she understood that they were some of the best soldiers in this world, likely superior to the Sorceress Kingdom common human city guards. But by her standards, if I send them to battle like this, we will surely lose. I have to take them under my command and make them stronger. Otherwise, it won't take long before the Dothraki overwhelm them with their numbers. She turned her attention to Sami, who was standing by her side. Do they have a commander? No, Your Grace. They were all employed as household guards and were separated in several groups before we bought them and put them together. Malik looked back at the Unsullied. So, I have to choose a captain for them myself. Caruso. Yes, mother. Caruz, the divination specialist, bowed to her mother. Examine them with your magic. Find the highest level being among them. At once, Caruso seated on the ground. She casted a number of spell, which she widened their range with her skills. After a few moments, she rose again and aimed at one of the Unsullied. That one. She pointed at one of the Unsullied who was standing before the rest of his group. He is the strongest among them, and the only one who has a level in commander-type classes. Good. As expected of a specialized divination. Sami, call him here. Yes, Your Grace. Also, summon the tattered prince and Rain as well. Tell them their commander calls them to her war council. Sami bowed and turned his back to leave the room. But before he left, he decided to ask a question that was plaguing his mind. He turned his face toward Malik, and with a hint of fear in his voice asked, May I ask something, Your Grace? You may. He steadied his tune and straightened his back. May I know how did you manage to bring those two cells words at your side? What guarantee we have that they won't betray us and run away the moment they face the enemy? Well, Malik smiled evilly, and her mind went back to recall the events that happened a few days ago. Flashback/Malik office. The doors were closed, and the two cells word leader looked at Malik with distrust. I have a job for you, for both of you. I want you and your men to help repel the Dothraki horde of Kalpono. The two of them were taken back. Regan wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, Malik continued. I understand what you were thinking. Even with your forces combined with that of the Unsullied, we will have less than 5,000 men against 30,000 Dothraki. But there is no need to worry. Victory will be ours. How can you be so certain? Have you ever faced the Dothraki in an open field? Not the Dothraki specifically, but I have fought other such nomad tribes. Gilo Riegon. So you haven't. Only a fool would meet the Dothraki in an open field. They are some of the best warriors in the world, and are literally unbeatable in an open field. Malik, you don't want to put our lives at risk for an endeavor that seems doomed to fail. I don't blame you, but I do have a plan to defeat the enemy. Besides, you Sellswords fight for gold, don't you? I offer something more. Come under my employment, under the employment of the Sorceress Kingdom, and you will never need another contract. You and your men will have gold, lands, titles, all that would desire. The tattered prince looked at the princess who declared so. This pretty girl thinks she can have everything she wants just because she is rich? Heh, he thought to himself. What good gold and land is to a dead man? Besides, what I want is something that you can never give me. Malik, are you so certain? You have to but name your desire, and it will be yours. I can say so because I have the power to back my word. What I always wanted was to return to my city, to Pentos, and rule as its prince. Didn't you run away from Pentos because you didn't want to? No, I left Pentos because those magisters wanted me to be their disposable puppet. The position of prince is merely a decoration. The prince has no saying in the ruling of the city and exists only to perform the ceremonies. If the city is in a good mood of wealth and health, the prince is kept. If it is in poverty or disease, the prince is beheaded and replaced. I did not want that. See, I told you that you can't give me my desire. Malik looked at the old man before her. She turned her back to him and sat again at her chair behind her desk. So you want to be the ruler of Pentos? Yes. Done. The two Sellsword captains were stunted for a moment. The tattered prince looked at Malik again and said, What do you mean by that? I meant what I said. Pledge your allegiance to me. And once the Dothraki are defeated and I have finished my work in Mir, I will give you the throne of Pentos. How can you do that? I am the commander of Nazarick. The mighty legions of the Sorceress Kingdom are mine to command. Once I have finished my business here, I shall give you the forces and support required to take Pentos. Of course, the city will belong to the Sorceress Kingdom, but you shall rule it as its prince in our name. He went deep into thought. Regan, who was listening to their conversation with wonder, decided to take his chance now to interject. And me? Can you give me what I want as well? Just name it. Regan thought about it for a moment. He was born in a wealthy family, but when his father died, his older brothers denied him his wealth and kicked him out of their house. He swore he would get revenge on them, and so he became a Sellsword in pursuit of wealth and power, so that he could take revenge on his brothers and to taunt them with his success and riches. But even though he became the leader of a free company, he was still far from reaching his dream. He looked at the princess before him. If she could give what he wanted simply in exchange of his loyalty, then it would be a small price to pay. He did not hesitate to answer. I would only ask of you to honor your previous word. If you could indeed grant me all that you promised, then I will be glad to serve. Of course, my word is as good as a done deed. What about you, Prince? The captain of the Windblown rose his head and looked directly at Malik's eyes. I accept your offer, but we shall write it on a paper. In here we write our promises on paper. Words said in the winds tend to be forgotten, shall we say? Malik smiled at the two of them. She reached into her robe and took 2 scrolls out. I have your contract right here. It is all written, signed and pounced by the royal seat of Ain Zul Gown. All is left is your signature. What? The 2 captains were taken back. What did she meant by that? Malik gave each of them a scroll, and when they opened it, it was an official contract hiring the Windblown and the Long Lances. The contents of it was all according to their conversation right now. In Regan's contract, he was granted an official position and a very high amount of money, while the Tattered Prince contract granted him the royal decree of Ain's old gown that gave him the right to rule Pintos in his name. They looked at Malik with disbelief. What is this? Did you already knew? Malik gave a taunting smile. Of course I knew. I always learn the secrets of those I do business with before I start my partnership with them. There was nothing about you that I was not already aware of when you stepped in this room. They looked at her again, this time with fear written all over their faces. I understand how you feel. Say, what is your answer? All that you want will be yours. You just have signed it. They hesitated for a moment, but in the end the thought about losing this opportunity, which might not happen for a second time, appeared in their head. So they signed the papers. Malik laughed at their behavior in her heart. Thank you, gentlemen. Now there is one more thing that I must ask of you. What is it? Their unease was clear in their voice. Malik walked away from her chair again. She stood right before the two of them, in a very close distance. I have given you my word and trust. Now you will have to give yours as well. Suddenly, she grabbed the two of them by the neck and pressed them down. They were both put on their knees by pure physical strength. They tried to release themselves from her grasp and stand up. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't even budge or shout for help. Malik griped their necks so hard that they could not even shout for help. Oh, don't worry. I am not going to kill you. Just give you a gift. Suddenly, her hands were covered in a green fire. They felt the heat and thought they were going to burn. But surprisingly, there was not even a single blister or the smell scorched flesh. Grand Mark of Dullahan. Command Mantle. Malik activated 2 of her special abilities. And once she felt that they were activated, she released her grip. The two of them put their hands on the ground, choking for air. What the hell was that? What did you do? What the hell are you? A witch? I simply marked you as my servants. That said, I am no witch or sorcerer, but something far more. Like I said, I am a commander, a general. Now that you are under my command, I can give you a fraction of that power as well. Enable you to achieve that which you desire. But of course, if you try to betray me. Malik clenched her fist, and in that moment, a dark blue magical circle appeared around their body. Ah! They felt as if their body was being torn apart. The pain they were experiencing was enough to pop out their eyes. The fact that these two aged and battle-hardened warriors were in such sad state was proof that the pain they were feeling was far above normal. The two of them screamed in union. But since the room was secure against eavesdropping, no one heard their screams. Malik opened her fist, and the two of them stopped their screaming. I have also marked you with a curse. It does not kill you or affect your mind and health, but it will reveal your location to me, in any part of the world, and allow me to subject you to a suffering that what you just experienced would fail in comparison. That said, I will only do so if you betray me. Now get up. Get you men ready and have them camped outside the city. I will call you back later to discuss my battle plans with you. The two of them stood up. They were utterly terrified of what had happened here and somewhat regretted their choice to accept her offer, but now it was too late. Yes, your grace. We shall do as you command. And so they left. Your grace, are you all right? Malik was deep in thought when Sami's voice brought her back to her senses. Yes, I am fine. I was just thinking about the fight that's ahead. You don't need to be worried about those two. I have earned their loyalty through virtue. Rest at ease. Yes. Forgive me. I shall return shortly. Samly left to bring the chosen leader of the Unsullied to Malik's office. At the same time, Malik sent a message to Regan and Tattered Prince and summoned them back to her office. Afterward, she turned her attention to her daughter. Say, Kurusu, until they come back, let's talk. That's right. How did your search goes? Did you find any track of the one who tried to spy on me? Kurusu shook her head. I am afraid not. Whoever spied on you must have used a different type of magic than the one we use. Because I was unable to locate this person with neither tier magic or wild magic. But I have taken measures against divination attempts. I am sure that if they try to spy on you again, I will be alerted and can track them down. Good. I hope we find them soon. I don't like to deal with unknown factors during my work here. In the meantime, there is something else I need you to do. I'm all ears. What do you need? Keep an eye on the Dothraki horde. If they arrive at the vicinity of Mir, I want to know it before anyone else. Of course, Mother. A few minutes later, the Sellsword captains and the chosen leader of the Unsullied arrived at the office. The three of them bowed before Malik. She was used to this sort of behavior for a long time. Unlike the first years of their arrival in the new world, both Ains and Malik were quite adapted to this sort of behavior and were no longer at odds with themselves. After putting on the air of a respected ruler, Malik turned her attention to the servants in her office. Raise your head. Yes. The three of them raised their head at once. But Malik's eyes were focused on the Unsullied before her. The man who stood before her was in his 25s. His appearance was normal. Black hair and brown eyes. With hair so short one could almost see his scalp. He was wearing a light plate armor and a pointy helmet, a triangle-shaped shield and a spear in his hand, and a short sword around his waist, which was the standard gear of the Unsullied. Welcome. Remove your helmet. The man immediately removed his helmet without delay. The face beneath was normal, neither handsome nor ugly. What is your name? This one has the honor of being Black Rat, your grace. Black Rat. Malik said so with a clear dislike in her voice. Sami decided to clarify it to her. When the Unsullied are cut, they are given new names. Black Rat, Red Flea, Gray Worm. Names to remind them what they are. Vermin. Malik looked at the man before him with eyes full of pity. But that only lasted for a moment. Her pity was soon replaced with rage. The practice of slavery was against her code. It was not merely for the fact that it was outlawed in the Sorceress Kingdom, but because she felt that slavery is a cruel, primitive, and extremely inhuman tradition. From her perspective, the service of the men was only worthy when it was given freely. If I were to lead an army of slaves to war, how better I am compared to these primitive people. From now on, you shall not bear this name or any low and shameful name. You and the rest of the Unsullied shall choose your own names. Names that will give you pride, be it the name our parents gave you or a name of your own choosing. Black Rat felt confused. He did not understand his new master motive for saying such things. Malik saw the confusion in his eyes. I have no interest in slavery. In the Sorceress Kingdom, every man is free to make their own patch and forge their own destiny. While I have paid for you and your kin, I hold none of you to be my slaves. I shall grant you your freedom. Black Rat was speechless. He truly did not know what to say. All of his life, since he was but a little boy, he was trained and raised as a slave soldier. He was quite alien to the meaning of the word freedom. This one apologized. This one is uncertain of the meaning of your words. You can ask the men and the women who I bought and freed a month ago and tell them to clear your doubts. This is but a simple offering. In the Sorceress Kingdom, there are no slaves. Now that you are here, within the property of our kingdom, you are a free man. You can leave this place if you like and go back to the outside world. No one will stop or harm you. You have my word. Or you can stay here and serve as freemen and be rewarded for your service. Tell this to your brothers as well. Tell them they are free to choose their own patch. Robet, Sami, and Karusu smiled in satisfaction, while Regan and Tattered Prince were looking at Malik with doubt. You can give me your answer tomorrow. Call Pono and his Kalasar will be on their way by now. Any of your brothers who wants to leave can do so until tomorrow, because after that, we march to war. Black Rat heart was filled with happiness and feelings that he had not experienced since he was a child. Some things called hope and respect. Yes, your grace. This one give your majesty his utmost thanks. We shall repay your kindness with equal effort. I know that you will. Now, before you leave, come here and take a look at this map. I want to share my battle plans with you. With this one, yes, I have chosen you to be the leader of the Unsullied. Tomorrow/8 p.m. Malik spent the entire night in her room thinking about the battle ahead. She was thinking about the strategies she could use against the overwhelmingly Dothraki horde and the ways to counter any strategies they would have for her. When the dawn came and everyone awoke from their sleep, she went outside to see those of the Unsullied who remained in the villa. And to her great pleasure, all of them were present. The leader of the Unsullied stepped forward. After a few moments, Black Rat came toward her. I am pleased to see you all here. Why you did not leave? This one shared what he learned from you to the rest of the Unsullied. We also heard from the men and women you freed about the truth of your words. We would be honored to be of service to you, as free men. Malik smiled softly at Black Rat. He was surprised how nice his master looked when she smiled. When he was going to meet her at first, he had the impression of a noble, rich, and soft woman. But Malik's appearance, which was that of warrior with fierce eyes, shattered his impression of women. But now he felt that his master was even looking a bit cute. No, it was wrong to have such thought about one mistress, even if he was a eunuch. I am pleased by your response. That said, has this one chosen a name for himself yet? What about your brothers? Yes, your grace. This one wishes to be called Black Rat. Why? I told you to choose names that gives you pride. Black Rat give me pride. The name this one was born with was the name that he was enslaved with. But Black Rat is the name this one bore when Malik al-Mut set him free. It is a lucky name. Malik nodded her head and smiled again. Black Rat heart was once again filled with unease. Suddenly, other figures appeared before Malik. Mother! Malik looked at her back and saw that it was Kurusu, alongside with tattered Prince and Regan. From their panicked behavior and attitude, it was clear that there was a dire situation going on. She immediately guessed what was going on, but decided to ask to play safe. What is it? Kurusu was panting, but after taking a few deep breaths continued to speak. I have just been notified. The Khalasar of Kalpono have arrived within 10 leagues of Mir. They will be at the city gates within by noon. Malik answered their panic with utter calmness. So they have come. It is time to get to war. Call all of our forces. Tell them to take formation north of the Mir. The Cellsword captains and Black Rat answered at once. Understood. Malik turned her attention toward the Unsullied. Evacuate the city. Engage all defenses, and get yourselves some shields. She pointed at Black Rat and the Unsullied. Marching to war. Malik put on her regular dark armor and equipped her sword around her waist. She also wore a helmet that was similar to a crown, because it was decorated with several black spikes shaped like long swords. She turned her attention to the gathered Unsullied and started to leave the great white villa alongside 30 Death Cavaliers. But before she could, Your Grace, Malik al-Mut. She looked around and saw that it was one of the slaves she bought and freed. But he was not alone. The other were with him as well. They all had tear-stained faces. What is it? Are you here to convoy me and say goodbye? Why? Why are you leaving? Don't you know? I am going to defend the city against Dothraki. We know that. But why you should be the one to do it? You don't owe this land and its people anything. On the contrary, they owe you so much. It should be the duty of the Magisters to defend this city. Why should you risk your life for us? It is not like that. It is the duty of the strong to protect the weak. I became strong so when they needed me, I could fight the battles that they never could. I am here to protect the people under my care. That includes you, because no one else would. All those Magisters that you talked about are now leaving the city with their wealth. The people present could only listen in awe to her words. It was a very touching and effective speech. The way Malik talked with her gentle, yet strong, and hope-giving voice was enough to melt down anyone's heart. Countless emotions were rising up. This was not merely because of her good choice of words, but because of one of her special abilities. High-level commanders had the special ability to influence people's minds. They could grant confidence, fear resistance, and similar mental effects on their allies, or subject the enemies to fear, confusion, hatred, and other negative effects with their battle cries. Malik was using one such ability to influence the mind of the people around her. They all lowered their head. A moment later, Malik talked again. Raise your head. From now on you shall never bow before anyone. Robet Sami stepped forward and waved his hand to his subordinates. Several men stepped forward, carrying scrolls and money bags in their hands, and gave one of each item to the people present. As they were wondering what were this for. Today I am going to war. Whatever the outcome of this battle, I want you to have this. These are your freedom warrants. You are now officially free. Inside your money bags is 30 gold coins. Enough for you to start a new life on your own. If the worst came to pass and I was defeated, go to the harbor with Sami. I have booked 2 ships for you. The captains will take you wherever you want. Go now and be free. Malik Sama. Unable to say anything, all the former slaves bended their knees. Their face was red and full of tears. These were not crocodile tears. They were truly crying. Fuin. Malik looked at the 100 people who were kneeling and crying before her. All right, what are you doing? Get up. Didn't I tell you to live free? You must never bend the knee to anyone again. How could we leave you? You were the first and only person who has ever treated us with such kindness. We were slaves, lower than vermin in the eyes of others. But you turned us into human beings again. Even if you have granted us freedom, we would like nothing more than serve you loyally. We want to repay the kindness you have shown us. I am glad that you think so. I truly am. But this is not a request. You are not allowed to throw your lives away. After everything, you have to live on as free men and women. So does our children after you. If you wish to repay me, do so by your lives." They looked at her with their tear-stained face, but their eyes was filled with an emotion that was hard to describe. "I have no intention of losing. I ride to war for victory. You should leave this house now. Whether I return or not, you can choose your patch after the battle." The streets of Mir. Malik and her company were marching toward the main gate to the north of the city. The Sellsword companies were already camped outside the city walls, so the one who were accompanying her were her 30 Death Cavalier bodyguards, 3 of which were holding the banners of the Sorceress Kingdom, and 2,000 unsullied. Malik was marching ahead of them all, mounting a 3-horned warlord bicorn. There were thousands of people watching their departure from the sidewalks. None of them had any bright or cheerful expression on their faces. The faces of people were grim. There was clear sadness in their looks. The way some of them put flowers beside the streets or watched Malik with their somewhat pitiful eyes was the very picture of people convoying and saying farewell to the martyrs. They all believed that none of the people who were passing their streets would return. They would all perish in the coming battle against the numerously larger enemies of the Dothraki horde. Malik paid no heed to their looks, not because she didn't care about their concerns at all, but because she was worried about something else. Midst the silence, some murmurs could be heard. "I can't believe the princess of another country is going to war in order to defend us from the Dothraki. Where are the magisters now? Don't you know? They are all getting ready to flee the city with their wealth and their family. They are just waiting to see the result of the coming war. Once that is concluded, they will board their ships and flee. Those damn bastards. Now that the whole city is in danger, all those great men flee. And in their place, a woman who is not even Myrish is going to risk her life for us. Those cowards know no shame, do they?" The company passed the streets midst the murmur and the convoy of people. Battle of the Black Queen. Before long, Malik and her company arrived at the flatlands north of the city. The field which would be their battleground in the coming hours was a wide green plain. It was about 2 miles away from the city and was only a mile wide. At its east and west were green and rocky hills, and about 3 miles ahead of it at the north was a forest. Beyond the rocky hills at the west was the Sea of Myrth. The tattered prince had already put his men in battle formation at the plains and was awaiting Malik. He was riding on top of his warhorse and lifting the spirit of his men with his war cry. "Tattered prince, Vala, windblown, Morgulus. Vala, Morgulus. Vala, Morgulus. Vala, Morgulus." Vala Morgulus is the High Valyrian word for "all men must die." Malik rode her 3-horned war bicorn beside him. "Thank you for standing with me today." The tattered prince lowered his head. "Of course, your grace." Malik turned her attention to her troops' battle formation. It was done exactly as she had ordered it to be so. The 500 cavalry of Windblown and the 800 cavalry of Long Lances were stationed at the 4th rank, while the 300 archers and 30 engineers who were manning the catapults were stationed at the 3rd rank. About 1,200 infantry soldiers of the Windblown were split in 2 groups and were stationed at the 2nd rank. Unsullied. Take formation before the infantry as the 1st rank. The Unsullied moved in perfect order. They split in 2 groups, each 1,000, and arranged themselves before the infantry. Malik also issued a mental command to her Death Cavaliers. 10 of you will stand with Windblown cavalry and 10 other with Long Lances. The other 10 would stand at my side. Afterward, she turned her attention to the forest before her. It was hard to say when the Dothraki would come, but from the info she received from her, or better said demiurges, man from within the Khalasar, the Dothraki will invade from this way and shall face them head-on. That was exactly what she was counting on. The Dothraki camp. Kalpono was riding at the front of his Khalasar on the back of his favorite steed. The steed he was riding was a large black warhorse. It had no name because the Dothraki believed that it would be bad luck to name animals and items. But everyone knew this horse. It was a wild horse that Pono tamed at the age of 13. Before him several other had tired to mount it, but it threw them all back to the ground. Some decided that this horse was completely wild and could not be tamed, so they should kill it and butcher it for its meat. But then Pono tried his luck, and to everyone's surprise he was successful at taming this wild strong horse. It was larger than common horses and was stronger than them as well. It would not allow anyone but Pono at his back. Beside Pono were his son and his blood riders, and behind them were 30,000 screamers. They were only a few miles away from Mir when the outrider they sent to check on the city and its defenses returned. Call Pono. The Myrish have gathered their troops at the north of the city and are awaiting us. How many thousand men they have? 5,000 at best. Hearing this, the blood riders laughed loudly. Just 5,000? Really? If it is true, it must an insult from them. We are 30,000 strong, and they have only sent that much against us. Maybe they are just there to delay us long enough for the rest of them to flee? Pono, perhaps. But first we must know. Do you know their army? Who is commanding them? Outrider. They are the wind-blown and the long lances. Alongside 2,000 unsullied. The person in command of them is a woman. What? Pono looked at his blood riders. Judging by the looks on their faces, he was sure they heard the same thing he did. A woman? In command? My, there must a famine of men in Mir that they are using their women to do their fighting for them. How could those men let themselves be commanded by a woman? They have no pride. Still, they have 2,000 unsullied. We must not take those lightly. We all know their strength. You all know the story about how 3,000 unsullied defended Kohor from the Khalasar of Kal Temo and defeated them. Temo had 15,000 men. We have 30,000. Besides, he made the mistake of underestimating the enemy, something that we will not do. How about we attack the city from east or the south? Pono, are you trying to ruin our reputation? If the word gets out that we avoided a mere 5,000 men out of fear for defeat, we will be a laughingstock among the Dothraki. Rebuked, the blood rider turned silent. Pono looked at his Khalasar and yelled, "We are marching to the north of Mir. We will crush the enemy beneath our horses' hooves and water the grass land with their blood, to war. Wo-awo-wee-aho. La-la-la-la-la-la-la-la." The Dothraki all screamed in union. Flatlands. Malik and her army were waiting for the enemy to appear, and sure, before long, the Dothraki horde arrived. The forest did not allow them to fully see the enemy, but from the screams heard from afar, it was obvious that they had arrived. Malik and the two Sellsword captain were watching the tree line from afar when they saw 3 riders break through it and marched forward. More than 20,000 Dothraki appeared before them. Malik turned her attention toward the 3 who stood before the enemy's army. From their behavior, it was very likely that they were either the enemy commanders or maybe messengers sent to negotiate. The one who stood at the middle was riding a large black warhorse, while the 2 at his side looked like to be 2 battle veterans. That one, who is riding a black horse, is called Pono, your grace. So that's the one. I expected him to look scarier. Regan, sent one of your riders to them. Tell them they have 2 options. Leave this city outskirts now, or they will all die. You can't be serious. Malik turned her unhappy, and somewhat bored and angry, gazed toward him. Do I look like someone who jokes? My apologizes. I will send someone immediately. Regan called one of his riders and relayed the message to him. Afterward, he sent him to the Dothraki line. Kal Pono watched as an outrider from the enemy line was dispatched toward him. Do they want to talk? Maybe they want to surrender. I hope not. We haven't had a good fight in months. I say we reply them in kind. Are you sure, Kal Pono? Maybe their commander has an offer we can't refuse. Her ass is an offer we can't refuse. Ha ha ha. The rider came closer. Pono hinted to the blood rider at his right. He grabbed his spear tightly and aimed it at the coming rider. And then throw it. The spear penetrated the armor and hit his hearth. He was thrown from his horseback and into the ground. The Dothraki yelled again, while Malik looked at this scene in clear annoyance. I guess that concluded diplomacy. There was no anger or sadness in her voice. She turned her attention to the 2 individuals at her side. Return to the cavalry units and get ready for my command. Yes, your grace. She looked at her men. They were all shivering in fear. Of course, it was a natural reaction. In the face of an enemy that was superior to them in both numbers and strength, they must feel that there was no chance of victory. But while she could understand it, she could not allow them to be in such weakened state of mind. How it came to this? While I understand the logic behind Demiurge's plan, it is just to run down for me to command such a weak army. Normally, she could use her magic to summon monsters and buff them with her abilities. Even if she were to use and spell for mass summoning low-level creatures, She was confident that she could at least summon 5,000 level 10 to 15 creatures and buff them to be above level 25. But now she had a weakling army of men whom most of them were below level 10. Only the Unsullied had an overall level of 10, 11, or 12. Suddenly, she felt something in her heart, a feeling that she did not felt for centuries. This is interesting. It's been a long time since she had a decent and difficult battle. She was famous for being able to win the battle despite having a tenth of her opponent's forces. But it was a long time since she had any such battles. It filled her heart with desire and expectations. How this battle is going to turn out. I am looking forward to it. She rode her war bicorn before the lines of her army and gave an inspiring speech. Soldiers, men of war, and freed men of Unsullied, you are about to embark upon a great crusade, toward which we have striven for weeks. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of the people of Mir and all the free cities everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms upon this battlefield, who stand with you with their lion hearts, you will bring about the destruction of the Dothraki war machine, the elimination of those who would take your life and freedom and security for ourselves in a free world. Malik's voice was deep and filled with emotional influence, and it was, surprisingly enough, echoed in the ears and the minds of all the people present with absolute clearness. Such was one of the privileges, or should it be said passive skills, of a high-level commander and general. The soldiers who hear her voice took their eye away from the Dothraki horde. Somehow they felt great bravery and strength just by hearing it. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But the free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. For you possess greater strength than you know. Your hearts beat stronger than you know. And today, we will fight under the flag of the sorceress kingdom of Ain's Old Gown. We will accept nothing less than full victory. The soldiers felt overwhelming power coursing through their body. The fear and the feeling of weakness in their heart was gone completely, and they roared in the response to their commander battle cry. This a day when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not you who would feel that way. This is an hour of wolves and shattered shields when the wrath of gods comes crashing down. But it is not you who would fall this day. This day we fight, and break the enemy back with our iron fist and blades. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand. Fighters of freedom. The Unsullied readied their shields and spears. The infantry and the cavalry drew their blades, while the archer readied their bows and the engineers loaded their catapults. Malik turned her attention to the Dothraki horde before her and smiled in her heart. It was no ordinary speech she gave to the men under her, nor was merely to banish their fear and awaken their warrior spirits. Unknown to the people present, Malik had activated several of her special abilities and casted several buffs on them through her words. Now they were all resistance to fear, and their abilities, both in physical and fighter types, was boosted. Kalpono raised his sword to the air, and a moment later he brought it down. 20,000 Dothraki screamers rode out of the forest and toward Malik and her army. 5,000 were riding ahead of them as the vanguard. Why there is only 20,000 of them? Do they perhaps plan to? An imaginary light appeared above her head. She could easily guess the plan Kalpono had made. Malik gave voice to a Valyrian war cry, in order to further strengthen her army resolve. Malik, Indinka. Brave. Army, Indinka. 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 The Unsullied hit the ground with their spears every time they yelled, while the rest were pointing their blades at the sky. The ground beneath their feet was shaking because of the hooves of the Dothraki horses, but none of them showed any fear. And when the Dothraki entered within their 300-meter radius, Malik, long-distance combat. The 6 catapults throw their fireballs. While they were few in numbers, they each had an area effect of 2 or 3 meters, and so they were considered to have the greatest offensive ability of the whole army. The fireballs landed on the Dothraki, but while this caused them several casualties, they did not stop the speed of their advance in the slightest. Archers, ready, draw loose. The 300 archers stationed behind the infantry shot their arrows. For some reason, the accuracy of their aim and strength was far above normal, and almost all of them managed to hit their targets. Archers. Catapults. Concentrate your fire at the center of the horde. The concentrated fire at the central rank of the enemy continued, and the Dothraki reached within 200 meters of Malak. Suddenly, the 500 windblown cavalry and the 800 long lance, alongside 20 death cavaliers that were stationed with them, withdraw from battle. They turned their back from the battlefield and ran away in opposite direction of the field and left the rest of them alone. Neither Malak nor her men needed to turn around to see this. The cavalry had run away, and they all disappeared behind one of the hills at the east of the battlefield. Kalpona was watching this from the tree line near the forest, where his other 10,000 men were standing nearby. Cowards ran. They better leave the fight to real men. This is what happens when you put a woman in charge. But whatever the case, the absence of their cavalry meant that he could follow his plan to defeat the enemy with minimal losses. The Dothrakan vanguard, who reached within the 200 meter of the enemy, skillfully stood atop of their horses and drew their bows. The fact that they showed such skill at riding was proof that their reputation as horse people was not mere wind in the air. Malak, shield wall. Unsullied, shield wall. The Unsullied, who stood in two lines at the first rank, formed an imposing shield wall. The first line rooted their shields on the ground, while the second line put their shield above that of the first line. The Dothraki archer fired their arrows, but only a few of them managed to find their way to their target. Most of them were deflected by the shield wall, or if they went above it, hit some of the infantry men at the second rank. On the other hand, the arrows and fireballs did not stop hitting the Dothraki and slaying hundreds of them. Finally, the 5,000 vanguard, whose number was diminished by hundreds, reached the shield wall. But to their surprise, they found themselves unable to advance any further, as the shield wall before them did not flinch even a little. The Unsullied at the second line thrust their spear at the Dothraki horses and their riders, while the infantry behind them would throw spears and rocks. The horde, that was taking all the fire at the center and saw their vanguard fail to break through the enemy line, divided into two parts, each almost 8,000 men. One part went to the right and the other to the left. Malak saw this and realized that they were trying to flank her army and scissor them from sides. She smiled again. Everything was happening as she predicted. She extended her hands at left and right, and just before the Dothraki could flank them, maximize widen magic, wall of stone. Suddenly, two wall of stone, each 15-foot tall and 500-foot wide, sprung into existence. Wall of stone was one of the few defensive spells that Malak knew and could use. It was used to block the attacks of the enemy, while a level 100 player could break it down with one hit. For mere mortals, it was a very sturdy wall that could not be teared down unless one used some very strong catapults with some large stones. The Dothraki, who were about to flank the army, suddenly found themselves before a big wall that came out of nowhere. They were all shocked by the surreal sight before them. But before they could show any response, Malak, Unsullied, reverse formation. The Unsullied, who had finished killing or driving back the enemy vanguard, immediately broke their shield wall and turned to their back. Malak, phalanx formation. Siege them. The Unsullied split into two groups, each 1,000, and formed a shield wall in their infamous and impregnable formation before the Dothraki could react, and thus trapped them completely, without any chance of escape. While the Dothraki were quite strong on horseback, if they could not ride the said horse and were immobile in one place, then their combat power would drop by a large margin. Malak, advance. The Unsullied surrounded the shocked Dothraki. The moment they realized what was going on, they were already trapped. Some of the Dothraki tried to break through the wall using the brute strength of their horses, but they soon realized their stupidity as the Unsullied at the second line pierced their horses and their riders with their spears. The archers did not miss their chance either. They split in two groups, each 150, and filled the trapped Dothraki with their arrows. Since they were less than 50 meters away and unable to move, it was practically blank-point shot for them, so they killed the Dothraki every time they shot an arrow, and each one of them shot an arrow every few seconds. No prisoners. No mercy. The Dothraki, who felt they could win this battle easily due to their superior numbers, found themselves in a slaughterhouse near the forest. Kalpono, who was watching the battle, was surprised to saw that mere infantry managed to halt their advance and prevent his riders from breaking through. He also realized that his opponent's skills and strength was beyond what he expected. For some reason, he felt that they were strengthened by some unknown force. Suddenly, there were loud screams coming from the battlefield, and to his fear, 2 stone walls appeared out of nothingness and blocked his riders as they tried to flank the enemy. What the hell is that? Where did those walls came from? It must be her doing. That woman must be a Magi witch. One of his blood riders answered his question with hints of unease in his words. Pono was disgusted when he heard that his opponent might be a witch. The blood magic of Magi is hated, mistrusted, and forbidden by the Dothraki, who claim that the Magi lie with demons and come to men in the dark of night to suck life and strength from their bodies. They may sometimes go so far as to kill anyone even assumed to be Magi, as to prevent her from cursing them with evil magic. Such foulness can't be allowed to stain my Khalasar. I will kill that witch with my own hands and burn her body. Pono looked at the 10,000 men who were still behind him, and then he looked at the enemy before him. Even though his 20,000 men were trapped by the Unsullied, it was taking their full effort to contain and kill them. If their phalanx formation was broken, the currently trapped forces could rout them all out. Right now, the only forces left on the ground were the wind-blown infantry. There were 1,200 when the battle began, but some of them were wounded or killed by the Dothraki arrows that passed above the Unsullied shield wall and were now reduced to about 1050. With his mind made up, he drew his sword and pointed it forward. La 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 la. Ride forth. He sprinted his horse and ran it at full gallop. The rest of the Dothraki followed him and brake out of the tree line. Malik watched with satisfaction as the Unsullied tightened their belt around the Dothraki. More and more Dothraki were falling by the minute, either by the spears of the Unsullied or the arrows of the archers. Suddenly, she heard the screams of the Dothraki from behind. She looked back and saw that 10,000 Dothraki were riding toward her and her army. This was not good. If they were to attack the Unsullied from behind and scissor them, the Unsullied would be slaughtered in short order, and the trapped Dothraki would be freed to trample the rest of her army. There was only one choice here. One way to win. I have to hold them back and prevent them from reaching the Unsullied, at least until they have killed the remaining Dothraki. She looked at her forces. Right now, she only had the 1050 infantry of the Windblown and 10 Death Cavaliers with her. Although they were all buffed with her power and could withstand the enemy charge for a while, it would be shameful for her if a large number of them died because of her making a poor strategic decision. The Death Cavaliers, though, she was not worried about them at all, even if the enemy was 1,000 times their size. The difference in strength between them would mean that they could overcome their numbers with enough time. But the strongest attack force in this army would be herself. Malik could say without any shame or false pride that, although her skills as warrior was inferior to Guardians and Nazarick, she had enough strength and mastery over her skill that she could fight against a level 80 opponent by herself and emerge victorious. Even thought she could not earn new levels and special abilities. There was no limit to how much technique one could learn, so she had spent most of her time utilizing her skills, mastering her senses, and learning several warrior techniques from Nazarick level 100 warriors such as Seabass and Cositus. She was confident in her abilities. Furthermore, while this was secret only few would know, she managed to increase her level as a warrior by using the extremely rare items made with the wild magic of the Dragon Lords and raise her warrior levels to their limit. She could not, of course, gain new levels, but the wild magic helped her to amplify her limited job class as a warrior. So while she was initially a level 5 weapon master and ranger, those levels were increased to level 10. Infantry, Death Cavaliers, rally to me. The windblown infantry formed a line. The Death Cavaliers rode forward and positioned themselves in equal space between them. We have to defend this position from the enemy. Our victory in this battle depends on it. I will stand with you as well and fight alongside you against the enemy. She looked at infantry, who were all on foot, and dismounted from her war bicorn. She slapped the bicorn at its back, and the beast rode away. Malik turned her back to the infantry and drew her long sword. Said sword was about 5 feet tall. Its color was black as the night, and its edge shined with magical radiance. Stand with me now and fight. Today we shatter the beast back and secure our victory. Huriwa. Malik, victory forever. Infantry, victroy forever. Malik ran toward the charging Dothraki with incredible speed. As if the full-plated armor she was wearing and the long sword she holding with one hand were as light as feather. The first one to respond were the Death Cavaliers, followed by the infantry. But of course, the difference of speed between a level 100 being like Malik and mere mortal or mid-tier undead was enormous. She ran so fast that she reached within a 100-meter of the Dothraki in less than 30 seconds. And the Death Cavaliers, despite riding black unicorns, were 100 meters behind her. Malik knew that she had to keep the Dothraki in front of herself and stop them from reaching the Unsullied behind. And the only way to do that was Showdown Declaration. Malik activated another one of her special abilities and then directed a challenging voice and roar toward the Dothraki. Bring me your souls. The roar of Malik, which had the ability to increase the hate directed toward the user, echoed in the battlefield. Suddenly, the Dothraki formation changed. It became like an arrowhead which was pointed toward Malik. She charged toward the Dothraki all by herself with the Death Cavaliers and infantry some distance away. At the moment that she was about to clash with them, however, she jumped into the air. It was no metaphor. She jumped 12 feet high off the ground, holding her long sword with both hands ready to bring it down. Her body was suddenly engulfed by a dark, shining aura. The Dothraki who were seeing this were all shocked, and their jaw dropped. But a moment later, the feeling of shock was exchanged with fear. The image of the dark woman who was in the air changed, for a short moment, with that of demon. A demon with white wings, wearing a dark robe and holding a long sword. Beneath the hood, there was no head, only darkness and shadow. Rhea Awa Ayer. The image disappeared, and Malik swung her sword down to the ground. All this happened in less than 3 seconds. A wave of darkness spread within 50-meter radius of Malik, and hundreds of the Dothraki and their horses around her fell to the ground. The feeling of fear was sowed into the hearts of all those who saw this. This was one of the skills Malik had learned as warrior when she obtained the job class of the Cursed Knight. The Cursed Knight was a powerful class. Its users would get stronger the more they were in combat. They could also use special skills such as emitting a wave of darkness filled with negative energy, auras of death, decay, fear, confusion, insanity, and causing wounds that could not be healed with low-tier spells and medicine. That said, because of certain drawbacks it was not very popular. This class had certain penalties. One of them is blood frenzy. The more blood the Cursed Knight is covered in, the stronger it gets. But it comes at the price of losing their mind to savagery and the inability to cast magic while they are under such influence. It also wrecked the ability of commanders to command their troops. Malik just released a wave of negative energy. She would usually use it to inflict status penalties on her opponent and cause health damage. But against low-level creatures such as this mere mortals, being exposed to it would mean death. Rare, come and get some. The Dothraki shook in fear. Malik could feel the monster within her trying to claw its way out and revel in carnage. No, not now. I must not lose my mind. I have to stay focused. Otherwise my army will be leaderless and will be easily routed. She calmed her mind, activated her aura of fear, and attacked at the enemy again. She slashed her sword at her right, and it cut through several horses and their riders as she ran forward. She slashed it at her left, and the same thing happened. With every swing of the sword, she would cut down several Dothraki. Sometimes she would release a wave of negative energy at the middle of the horde and cut hundreds down with one area of effect attack. The Death Cavaliers and infantry reached the horde and clashed. The infantry had a hard time. Despite their improved resolve and the boost they received in their abilities and strength, it was difficult to hold back several horsemen at once. The Death Cavaliers were more successful, however. They released their aura of fear. The Dothraki, who never faced such riders with such strange and demonic-looking horses, felt afraid, and it was proven that it was not without reason. Whenever a Death Cavalier swung his sword, a Dothraki or two would fall swiftly. The black red-eyed and two-horned horses were acting in combat as well, thrusting their horns into the body of the Dothraki and their horses or biting them with their sharp teeth. Though the Dothraki had levels as warriors and cavaliers as well, the difference of strength and skill between a Death Cavalier and a Dothraki was the distance between the heavens and the earth. The 4,000 Dothraki at the right flank tried to outflank them and attack the Unsullied from behind to free the remainder of the Dothraki caught in trap, when suddenly, horn blown. The loud voice of a horn was heard from some distance away. When they looked around to find the source, from behind the hill, a group of riders appeared and charged at the Dothraki who were trying to outflank the infantry. They saw that 1,300 riders were charging toward them. At their herd were 20 Death Cavaliers, 2 of which were holding the banner of the Sorceress Kingdom. "Kill them all," the tattered prince leading the wind-blown cavalry shouted. "Leave none alive." Regan leading the long lances shouted as well. The cavalry, who were waiting in ambush all this time, waiting for Malak's command to attack, charged at the Dothraki from their right. Their escape from earlier was just an act to lure the Dothraki into a trap and break their lines apart. The Death Cavalier riding ahead of them as vanguard released their fear aura as they break through the enemy lines. The wind-blown and long lances follow their line and begun to kill the confused, scared, and routed Dothraki. Kalpono, who watched this horrible scene before him, could only tremble in rage. In all his life, he never saw a woman. No, he never saw any warrior or witch possessing such incredible strength and cunning. They did not run away, but were waiting to attack us in the right moment. Damn it. He wanted to tear out his hair out of rage. Nothing was happening as he expected. How did a woman with less than 5,000 men manage to outsmart and best his Khalasar of 30,000 strong? What the hell is she? What are those creatures? What monster are these? His confusion was understandable. In all of his life as a warrior, and Khal, who was only second to Khal Drogo, he did not saw or heard anything about such powerful beings or such strange and demon-looking horses. No, all this is happening because that Maggie used some magic to curse my Khalasar and strengthen her own army. It is all her fault. Suddenly, he saw Malak fighting and killing tens of his men not far from him. Her back to him. Well, fight was too nice of a word. The more correct word was that she was disposing of the insects around her. He grabbed his sword tightly at his hand. It is my only chance. If I kill her, this battle would be over quickly. If I just wait, they will eventually overwhelm us. He thought to himself, and charged his black stallion forward. Ah-haw! Malak swung her sword non-stop. Several of the infantry and who were standing behind her thrust their spears and killed several Dothraki riders. There were several Dothraki who tried to attack her, but they all fell swiftly before they could even swung their curved swords at her. The rest of them began to run away. Malak, oh, Vala. Infantry, Morgulus. Vala. Morgulus. The Dothraki started to run away from her, but it did not matter much to her. She would kill them all here and there. Suddenly, she saw Kalpono, charging at her with a javelin at his hand, at the back of a large black warhorse. She looked at this mortal man charging at her and smiled evilly. She faced the charging warhorse and threw her sword to the ground. It disappeared before it hit the ground. La 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 la. Pono charged with all of his killing intent and strength. And Malak just stood still and watched him coming, until he was only 4 feet away from her. The moment he reached within that distance, Malak jumped. She did not jump high as she had first done, but only high enough to stand face to face with Pono. She deflected the javelin blade with the back of her hand. The sound of metal clinging against metal was heard. Before Pono could react, Malak grabbed his neck in midair, unseated him, and threw him to the ground without letting go of her grip. From her jump to unseating Pono, all of this happened in less than 2 seconds. Malak, who was still holding her grip around Pono's neck, raised him from the ground and looked him in the eye. Pono tried to free himself from her grasp, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not even move her hand despite holding it with both of his hands. Your time is at its end, young Khal. You two were no worthy opponent. Malak's voice carried a hint of disappointment and taunt. Pono, who found himself slowly choking death, weakly asked, "What the hell are you?" Malak brought his face closer to hers, so close that their nose almost met. "I am the conqueror of the worlds, sort of Ain's old gown, the shadow of death." With a small force, she cracked every bone in Pono's neck and dropped his lifeless body on the ground. His nose and eyes were bleeding and his face turned pale. The surviving Dothraki could only watch in horror. After all, their Khal, who was the strongest amongst them, was slain in an instant. His killer took no effort to do it. Malik looked down at the corpse of Pono, and then suddenly, she was hit at her right by a large horse. She did not flinch. After all, such weak attacks from low-level beings could not hurt her. Ah, it's his warhorse. Still trying to fight and avenge his rider death even now? You truly are a loyal mount, aren't you? The black stallion stamped its hoof to the ground as it prepared to charge again. Malik stood still and held her ground. The stallion charged at her, but when it reached her, the horse stopped at its course and stood on its two hooves for a moment. And when it brought them down before Malik, it stood frozen in place. Malik put her hand on its forehead and smiled as the horse lowered its head in obedience and submission. With a swift move that one could only expect as a veteran rider, she jumped at its back and took the leash. If Kalpono death caused the Dothraki to feel terror, the scene before them caused their jaw to drop. It was well known that Pono's black stallion was exceedingly loyal to him. Many others tried to mount it, but they all either fell from its back or were killed beneath its hoof. Though they did not know, Malik had instantly activated her fear aura, and when the horse was still in shock of fear, she tamed it with one of her beast tamer skills. The Dothraki turned and ran when they saw the Unsullied, who were finished with killing the 18,000 Dothraki in their trap, join the fight. Out of the 30,000 Dothraki who attacked them, less than 5,000 were now alive. They turned their back and ran. But Malik would not allow them such a thing. Cavalry after them. Don't allow any of them to escape. The victorious cavalries of Windblown and Long Lances, led by 20 Death Cavaliers, followed the Dothraki to their very camp. It was only after they received Malik's order to secure the slaves the Dothraki brought with them and looting their camp for any treasures that they stopped their pursuit. After the battle, Malik gathered the surviving members of her army. When they went to war, they had about 4,800 men with them. Out of them, about 4,400 remained. About 150 infantry, 140 unsullied, 30 archers, and 90 cavalry perished in battle. While out of the 30,000 Dothraki invaders, less than 4,000 managed, or better said were allowed, to escape. They also managed to free about 15,000 slaves from their camps, plus a large amount of money, possibly 1 million gold coins. It was all the tribute they collected when they were passing the free cities of Qohor, Norvos, and Pentos. The freed slaves expected to be chained and sold as property in Mir. After all, they were the spoils of war. But Malik assured them that such a thing would not happen, that they were all free now. She asked them to choose between coming to Mir with her and live under her protection or getting back out there by themselves. The freed slaves who knew that would not be able to survive long alone and would either be killed or enslaved again, accepted her offer. Malik marched her victorious army back to Mir, accompanied by the freed slaves. When they reached the main gate, however, the gate remained close. There was no warm welcome party or cheers of celebration from the people as she expected. I am the crown princess of the sorceress kingdom Malik al-Mut. I have returned from war victoriously. Open the gate. There was no answer from the guards standing atop of the wall. Malik turned her attention to the Sellsword captains at her side. What is going on? Are they perhaps on guard against us? I'm not sure, Your Grace, but it is possible. Perhaps they don't like the idea of having an army marching in the streets. Yes, sometimes the cities that employed us did not allow us to enter their city out of their mistrust, unless it was for work or benefiting from the pleasures their cities had to offer. Malik got the meaning behind Regan word, pleasure, but paid it no heed. There was more concerning matters at hand. Suddenly, the gate opened, and one of the magisters of the city came through with several guards at his side. Malik recognized the man before her. It was Darius Myroth. Personally, she did not like that man. His personality was twisted and annoying. He was usually reeking of alcohol, and from what her spy told her, he was a big financial supporter to the pleasure houses in the city. You know what I mean. Greetings, Your Grace. We are happy beyond measure to see you are alive and healthy. Magister Myroth, I am surprised to see you here so soon. I thought you left the city the moment word of the Dothraki horde arrival reached your ear. Darius chuckled, like a pig. Ho ho. Yes, me and the rest of the magisters were ready to leave. But Grand Magister Eredvan Razor suggested that we should wait and see the result of the battle before leavening. And so we waited at the harbor. When the word of your magnificent victory reached us, we immediately came to pay our respect and offer you our profound gratitude for saving the free city of Mir. Well, thank you. Is it because of your gratitude that you have kept the gate closed to me? No, not at all. We simply did not want to have an army march the streets. It would only cause unrest with our citizens. Darius' excuse sounded very unnatural. Malik could sense there was another reason for their actions. The return of an army that successfully defended their city against savages would cause happiness, not concern, for the people. I say your concerns are not necessary. People would cherish at our sight. I intend to enter this city with my army, so that the people would know that there is no longer a threat from the Dothraki. Darius frowned. He did not expect her to refuse. Can you please have the cell's word and your slaves camped outside the walls? It would be a rundown for us to have them. There are no slaves in this army, Magister Myroth, nor there are any cell's words. The people behind me are all free, and they are under my protection and authority. What? Darius was confused. What did she meant by that? What are you talking about? I meant every word. Or do you want me to repeat myself? No, it's not that. It is just the nobles of the city want to buy back the Unsullied from you for a high price, higher than you paid for them. They are also willing to pay a good price for the slaves you took from the Dothraki. This time Malik's face changed. Her eyes showed her anger so clearly that Darius trembled for a moment. There are no slaves or slavery under my care. I grow impatient with this word play. As I said, I will enter the city with all this men at my back. Understood. Darius felt that not complying would be a foolish act with severe consequences. He decided to tell her what he wanted to say from the beginning. It's not just that, Your Grace. There are rumors spreading in every corner of the city. It is said that you have used sorcery and magic to defeat the overwhelming horde of the Dothraki. It caused unrest amongst the people. Yes, I am from a place called the Sorceress Kingdom, remember? My father is the Sorcerer King. We traded your gold for magical items. It really came as a shock that might be able to use magic as well. I am sorry, Your Grace, but we can't allow you entry. Malik closed her eyes for a moment. She reached her decision and opened her eyes again. I am not asking for your authorization, and I had enough of your nonsense. I will not suffer this city corruption anymore. She turned her horse around and looked at the army behind her. Unsullied. Windblown. Yes. They all shouted in union. Sack this city. Kill the magisters. Kill the slavers. Kill any man who is holding a whip. But do not harm any woman or child or the guards who surrender peacefully. Strike the chains of every slave you see. Darius was shocked by the sudden development. What are you doing? This is blasphemy. This is madness. Malik turned around, dismounted from her new horse, and looked at him again. Madness. This is the Sorceress Kingdom. She kicked him in chest so hard and strong that his body broke in two parts. His lower part was thrown on the ground, while his upper parts stained the wall 20 meters behind him. Close the gates. Close the gates. The guards above the wall who saw and heard all this shouted, and the large and imposing gate was closed with swiftness before anyone could react. The main gate was made of hardwood and was further strengthened with steel. Unsullied could ram it for days before making a dent. But none of that mattered to Malik. She reached into thin air and drew something from her inventory. It was a large warhammer that was seemingly made of stone. It had several magical runes carved upon it. It was 6 foot tall, and by looking at its big hammer on its top, it looked like to be something that even a strong warrior with both hands would be hard-pressed to hold, let alone wield it. But Malik was holding it with one hand, as if she was holding a club. She aimed her hammer at the gate, and then threw it after activating its ability. Go, Earthbreaker! The hammer hit the gate. The moment it touched the gate, crack appeared all over it, and in less than a moment the gate was smashed into tiny pieces. Onward! The Black Rat shouted at the front, and all the Unsullied followed his example. Malik called Black Rat to her side. Remember, you must not let the slave raiders escape. I have already acquired their names and location. Get to them before they have the chance to escape. And once we caught them, isn't it obvious? Throw their dead bodies at the beach and leave a feast for the seabirds. And so, Malik and her army sacked the city of Mir. 3/4 of the people were slave and did not show any resistance, while the freeborn were too scared to do anything. Before long, the words of the Battle of the Black Queen and the sack of Mir spread across all of Essos and reached Westeros as well. What would soon follow would be Rise of the Sorceress Kingdom in the lands of ice and fire. Author note: This is the epilogue of the Volume 1 for this story. Volume 2 begins sometimes later. May the Lord of Light protects the world of the darkness that's coming. The visions are long and full of spoilers. The city of Mir / the Magisters' Council Hall. The Council Hall was a place where all of the Magisters would gather together to discuss the affairs of their city. It was usually a vibrant place full of voice and arguments, where the Magisters and city officials would come and go day and night. But today, it reeked of death and despair. The ground was full of corpses of various Magisters or other nobles of the city who had taken refuge in it when they heard the cell's words and Unsullied had attacked the city to sack it. Amidst the silence of the dead, there were several figures standing or walking within this hall. The tattered prince and Regan, alongside 4 death cavaliers on foot, and Kurusu, the adopted daughter of their black Queen Malik Almud, were standing in this room. People of Mir, hear me and rejoice. You have had the privilege of being saved by the great Malik Almud. You may think this is suffering. Nay, it is salvation. Your meaningless lives have been given for a cause greater and mightier than you could imagine. Smile. A death cavalier stabbed one of the half-living Magisters in the hearth and killed him. For even in death, you are under the protection and kindness of the supreme overlord of death, Ains Olgaun. A drive-in razor, the Grand Magister of the city and the only one of them still alive, stood frozen in place as he heard Kurusu words. His line of sight were then attracted to someone else, a woman in full armor instead of dress, who was observing all this in silence. I know how it feels to face your own demise, to feel so desperately that you are the one that should live, yet to fall from the grace of living nonetheless. It is frightening. Turn the legs to jelly. But I ask you, to what end? Dread it. Run from it. The Reaper comes to claim your mortal life and soul all the same. And now it is here. Or should I say, I am. She raised her hand, and within its grasp, a drive-in saw the severed head of one of his former friends. From the backbone hanging loose beneath it, it was clear that his head was not cut with a blade, but savagely ripped apart from his neck by the one who was holding it. There is nothing but evil about that woman. On the very first day I laid eyes on her, I felt that she was no mere traitor or princess. Why were we fooled by her looks and allowed her to step foot in our city? She was not beautiful. She was black, and terrible, and black. But regret would not change his fate. Malik looked at him in the eye. Due to her being a foot taller than him, it looked like that she was looking down on him. No, she was probably looking down on him since the beginning. The keys to the city main vault, or the same fate will happen to you. The Death Cavaliers snorted through their noise, their way of making a soft laugh, while the Cellsword's captains looked at this scene in silence, trying very hard to not show their true emotions on their faces. The only one standing idle and careless between them was Kurusu, proof that she was used to seeing such scenes. I assume you have a preference. A drive-in locked his eyes into that of Malik's fierce eyes. He knew that she was very likely to kill him anyway. So if he is going to die, he would not die a coward, and would not surrender their city treasures to her. Oh, I do Vala Morgulus. Malik immediately grabbed a drive-in by the neck, and her hands were engulfed by a green flame. Ah! A drive-in screamed as he was subjected to a pain that he never felt before in his life. The fire in Malik's hand burned very hot, but surprisingly, there was scent of scorched flesh or blisters on a drive-in neck, only pure pain. Vala Bodegones. All men must suffer, Malik said in response. The reason behind it was rather simple. Like her father and the guardians of Nazarick, Malik owned a world-class item. This was not an item her father gave to her, nor was it something she obtained during the wars at the Age of Rising. She obtained this world-class item during her days in Yggdrasil. The name of this WCI was the Eternal World Flame. This item power did not surpass or break the rules of Yggdrasil like most other world items, but instead it gave its users several special abilities. Having complete control over the fire element and the ability to summon all manner of fire powers, whether holy or evil, were one such abilities. Besides, the Eternal World Flame was not in a material shape, but it was absorbed within the user body and could not be taken away unless the user gave it freely or someone used another WCI to remove it. Malik had simply conjured a simple fire without any damage output, but with all its heat. A drive-in tried very hard to resist this unbearable pain, but by every moment the fire burned hotter and his pain rose to a higher level, until finally, All right, stop. Malik released her grip instantly and dropped him to the ground. Adrivan tried to grasp for air and touched his neck, and was relieved and shocked to find his flesh unharmed. It's here with me. He reached into his robe and drew out a golden medallion. Malik grabbed the key from his hand and turned her attention to the vault behind her. The vault within the council hall was where the magisters and major traders of the city entrusted their wealth for safekeeping. So it was well guarded and reinforced with thief-proof measures. Its door was about 1 foot thick, made of Valyrian steel, the hardest metal known to man. Its lock was made by the combined effort of the best locksmith in Mir. Malik put the medallion at its place at the vault, and then trolled it. There was a sound of metal moving against metal, but instead of the whole door opening, only a small plate of the door was moved aside. Beneath the plate was 6 more keyholes. Looks like you have a few keys short. Adrivan said so with a smile. Where are the other keys? The magisters keeps the key with them all the time, or hid them somewhere safe. But you have killed all of them, haven't you? And who knows where they have hidden their keys? Malik became furious at Adrivan's mocking tone. She turned her attention back to him, grabbed him by the neck, and threw him away. Adrivan's back hit the wall, and he collapsed to the ground with a grunt. The impact hurt him, but he was still alive. Apparently, Malik did not want to break her word about letting him live. Fine. I just opened this door the old-fashioned way. Suddenly, she grabbed the large door with both hands and began to pull it toward herself. It was a ridiculous sight for Adrivan. Even though he knew Malik had amazing arm strength, no one could pull out such heavy door, anchored to a stone wall, no matter how hard they tired. What a moron. Does she honestly think she can break Valyrian steel? Suddenly, there was a loud metallic voice, and the vault door was ripped from its place on the wall. Malik threw away the door that was several times bigger and heavier than herself on the ground. Adrivan could only look with his jaw dropped. I did not want to ruin my vault door, but no matter, I will just have someone to repair it. She looked within the vault and found it filled with gold and jewels. It was quite small and worthless compared to the Sorceress Kingdom treasury, but for a city like Mir, it was a suitable amount of money. Malik smiled softly at the spoils of her conquest and turned her attention to his servant and daughter in the room. I am going back to the Sorceress Kingdom for a few days, in order to report the events that happened here and to bring some people over to help manage this city in place of the magisters. And what shall we do in your absence, your grace? Your job is simple, tattered prince. For now, martial law is in effect. No one may leave or enter the city in my absence. Have the Unsullied and Windblown to patrol the city under the supervision of Death Cavaliers. The Long Lances and Windblown Cavalry shall scout the city surroundings. And make sure none of your men would do something as disgraceful as robbing people of their wealth or women. If I even get the wind of something like that happening in a city under my care, I will hold you responsible. Yes, your grace. The Sellswords bowed their head. And what of me, mother? You have to stay as well and keep the situation under your watch. I intend to bring your sisters with me as well when I return, so manage the affairs in my absence. I shall not fail you, mother. Caruso knelt and lowered her head. If I might interject, the voice of Adrivan Razor brought everyone's attention back to him. If you are going to rule and manage this city, you might want a native hand help you in that matter. I do, after all, have a bit of experience in this area. If you consider failure experience, I consider experience, O mighty black Queen Malik al-Mut. I, Adrivan Razor, the Grand Magister of Mir, the head of this great city traders, do hereby pledge to you my undying fidelity. Adrivan bowed his head as he stood before Malik, and Malik looked at him with amusement. And suddenly, Adrivan thrust his dagger, which he was hiding in his robe, toward Malik's neck, before anyone could react, but just before the tip of his blade could pierce Malik's neck. She grabbed the blade of his dagger with 2 of her fingers. Adrivan tried to push the dagger forward, only to find it a useless effort. He looked at Malik with open eyes. The fear was clearly shown in them. Undying, Malik grabbed his hand and bended it, so the dagger fell from his hand. You should choose your words more carefully. Malik grabbed Adrivan's neck again and lifted him from the ground to look at him face to face. Adrivan struggled to break free, but not matter how hard he tried, he could not even bend Malik's fingers with both of his hands. His face turned pale and his eyes became bloodied as he slowly choked to death. You will never be a queen, monster. Malik smiled mockingly at his last words. With a small force, she cracked every bone in his neck and dropped his lifeless body to the ground. That's where you are wrong. I am not a queen or a monster. I am the goddess of battle and death. I have no need of your service. Conquering this city is only phase 1 of my work. When I am done, all of this world will belong to Ain's Ulgaun, as all things should be. On that day, there will no more nobles or houses standing in our way. Come to think of it, I have not yet experimented about creating undead in this world. She thought to herself, and I accept your undying fidelity. Create middle-tier undead. King's Landing. It's been a few days since the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Stannis Baratheon attacked King's Landing with all of his forces. But thanks to Tyrion Lannister's brilliant strategies and the timely arrival of Lord Tywin Lannister with the entire Lannister and Tyrell army at his back, the battle ended with the victory for House Lannister. In the aftermatch of battle, Lord Tywin reclaimed his position as Hand of the King and was titled Savior of the City by King Joffrey Baratheon. But Tyrion's name was shadowed by Tywin, and he was left alone in a small and poor room while he recovered from his wounds, without anyone coming to visit him other than a few of his allies and Shay. After the affairs of the court were put in order by Lord Tywin, he decided to relocate the small council chamber from the throne hall to the Tower of the Hand, near his own quarters. And today, he would have his first small council meeting since his return to capital. The small council chamber. Lord Tywin Lannister was waiting before the council table, standing next to the highest placed seat at the table for the council members to arrive. Before long, everyone whom he called to this meetings came to his chambers. The first one to arrive was Lord Baelish Littlefinger, Master of Coin, followed by Lord Varys, Master of Wishpeers, Grand Maester Pycelle, his daughter Queen Regent Cersei, and his son Tyrion. When they arrived at his chambers and saw him standing next to his seat, with 5 more chairs at his left, they froze in their place for one moment. The first one to move was Littlefinger, who took the closest seat to Tywin, followed by Varys and Pycelle. Cersei and Tyrion stood by and watched as they all sat, and then Cersei went to her seat. She picked up the 4th seat, removed it from its place, and then placed it at the right side of the table right next to her father. Tyrion moved after Cersei was done. He pulled the 5th chair out and placed it at the other end of the table, so when he sat he was looking directly at his father. Tyrion gave a good look to the chamber around him. Intimate. Lovely table. Better chairs than the old small council chamber. Conveniently close to your own quarters. I like it. Tywin turned his attention to the 3 who sat at his left. What news of Jaime? The only answer he received was silence. 20,000 unwashed northerners have known about his escape for weeks. Collectively, you control more spies and informants than the rest of the world combined. Do you mean to tell me that none of you has any notion of where he is? We are trying, my lord. Try harder. What do we have then? Robb Stark and most of his bannermen are in Riverrun for the funeral of his grandfather, Lord Hoster Tully. In Stark's absence, Roose Bolton holds Harrenhal. Varys looked Littlefinger, which would seem to make him Lord of Harrenhal, in practice, if not in name. Well, let him have it. The name suits our purposes far more than that useless pile of rubble. The Lord of Harrenhal will make a worthy suitor for the widow Arryn. In response to Tywin's decision, Littlefinger answered with respect and gratitude, for which I am extremely grateful to you, my lord. Lady Arryn and I have known each other since we were children. She has always been positively predisposed toward me. A successful courtship would make Lord Baelish acting Lord of the Vale. Titles do seem to breed titles. You'll leave for the area as soon as possible and bring Lisa Arryn into the fold. Then the young wolf can add his own aunt to the list of people who have taken up arms against him. This time, Tyrion, who was listening quietly to this conversations, intervened. Far be it from me to hinder true love, but Lord Baelish's absence would present certain problems. The royal wedding may end up being the most expensive event in living memory. Summer has ended. Hard days lie ahead. Not a good time to leave the crown's finances unattended. Littlefinger felt a little troubled by Tyrion's statement, while Cersei looked at Tyrion with a hint of annoyance. Fully agreed. Which is why I'm naming you new Master of Coin. Heh. Cersei could not help but smile at his father's decision while she looked at Tyrion. Master of Coin? It would appear to be a position that best suits your talents. Tyrion's voice and coming answer showed that he was not positive about his father's idea. I'm quite good at spending money. but a lifetime of outrageous wealth hasn't taught me much about managing it. I have no doubt you will prove equal to this challenge." "Hear, hear." Cersei and Pycelle words was clearly nothing but a mockery for Tyrion. Tywin decided to change the subject. "Is there anything else?" The members were silent for a moment, but before Tywin could dismiss them, Varys spoke. "We have heard disturbing news from across the narrow sea, my lord. The Targaryen girl. I thought she was dead." "No, my lord. She is still alive. She was last seen at the Slaver's Bay. But that is not what I meant." "What is it then?" "My little birds in Myr have informed me that there has been violent overthrow of the city leadership. Someone named Malik al-Mut, who is apparently the princess of kingdom called the sorceress kingdom of Ain Zul Gown, has conquered the city and killed the magisters. She has freed the slaves, and right now, she is ruling as the Black Queen of Myr in the name of her father." Grand Maester Pycelle waved his hand in disapproval. "Ridiculous. The people of Essos are mostly superstition. This must be just some upstart who is trying to make herself a kingdom to rule. More than 60 years of service and study, and I have never heard of any place called the Sorceress Kingdom." The others nodded in agreement, but Varys did not. "As much as I like to believe that is the case, the information I have received begs to differ. Apparently, this Malik al-Mut entered Myr as the head of a merchant company, and due to the exotic goods and items she brought with herself, the magisters of the city welcomed her with open arms. 2 months after her arrival, a Dothraki horde of 30,000 strong invaded Myr. Instead of running away like the rest of the magister and traders of Myr, she hired 2 Sellsword companies and the Unsullied Guards, and if this news is to be trusted, she took the command of her army personally and even fought at the field. With less than 5,000 men, she managed to defeat the Dothraki horde. I have heard that less than 4,000 Dothraki survived this battle, while her forces suffered less than 500 casualties. Impossible. There must some sort of mistake in your information, Lord Varys. My sources are well placed, Grand Maester. They say that after she returned victoriously, the magisters of the city denied her entry with her army. She responded to their decision by sacking the city and killing them all. Meanwhile, she freed all the slaves in the city as well, whom are now her loyal followers. Cersei took an instant liking to Malik. She was always treated as a lady, while in truth she preferred to be warrior like her brother/lover Jaime. She always enjoyed the story about Nymeria, the legendary warrior queen of Royn, who migrated to Dorne with her people 700 years ago and built an alliance with House Martell by marrying the Martell lord of that time. She, alongside her husband, defeated 6 Dornish king and sent them to the wall, unifying Dorne under the rule of House Nymeros Martell. She sounds like an interesting woman. It's not that surprising to hear about a warrior queen every now and then. After all, wasn't Nymeria such a queen? I wonder how did she manage to win the battle when she was outnumbered 1-6? Well, your grace, some say she defeated the Dothraki by employing highly advanced strategic moves and outsmarting the nomad tribes. Some say she used sorcery to strengthen her army or slash and weaken her enemy. This time Tywin interrupted. And some say Robb Stark can warg into his direwolf or turn into a direwolf himself, and that the old gods aid him in his battles and curses his enemies. The common folk always made up such stories. I believe the idea of outsmarting those savage and nomad tribes is more likely. Well, what do you propose we do, my lord? Whatever the reason, the rise of monarch ruler in the free cities who is relatively near to our own borders is quite troublesome. Our trade with the free cities is an important part of our economy. If she remains in Myr, it won't be a problem in the long run, but if she decides to expand her territory and influence toward other free cities or the 7 kingdoms, whom will be exhausted and weakened after this war is over, we may end up having another whole crisis on our hands. Well, let her be for the time being. See what this new player in Game of Thrones has up her sleeves, and maybe, depending on future developments, we will even send an envoy to Myr to build diplomatic and economical relationships with this Malik al-Mut. Well, that would be a job for you, little brother, if your current position doesn't work out. Cersei's words did not fail to convey their true meaning to Tyrion, who felt rather annoyed by this development. Dragonstone. Melisandre, the Red Priestess of Lawler and Shadowbinder, sat in her private room in Dragonstone Castle. It's been days since Stannis' defeat at the Battle of Blackwater. Upon his return, Stannis was wrathful at her because he believed that she lied to him about his divine destiny and victory in war. But Melisandre managed to convince him that it was not so, that Stannis only lost one battle, not the war. She did so by showing him a vision in the flames, a vision that showed a great victory in the near future. Ser Davos Seaworth survived the battle. After his return, he assaulted Melisandre because he held her responsible for the death of his son and inveigling his king Stannis. But Stannis ordered Davos to be imprisoned for disobedience and for previously convincing him to leave Melisandre behind. And so, she returned to her private room. Even though she calmed Stannis, her own heart was in trouble. She had seen in her visions, given to her by the Lord of Light and Life Lawler, that the great war was coming. Soon would come a night that would never end, and the dead will claim dominion over all of the world. Only one person could stop this and defeat the enemy and drive back the great other, the god of death and darkness whose name may not be spoken, from the land of the living. The prophesied hero, the champion of life and light and fire, wearing the legendary sword Lightbringer, Azor Ahai. She traveled all the way from the edge of the known world, the dark city of sorcerers Ashai, to Dragonstone to find him. She believed that Stannis was the promised savior. But now with his defeat, I shall call upon the Lord of Light and ask for his guidance. May he light my patch and guide me through the darkness. And so, she began her ritual to receive visions and guidance from Lawler. She reached into her robe and drew out a knife. This curved knife was made of black steel, and a closer look would reveal several glyphs and runes carved upon. Without hesitation, she cut her arm and let the blood flow from her vines. She painted a circle around herself and made several glyphs with her blood within the circle, chanting in the dark tongue of Ashai all the while. Lord of Light, hear me. Guide me from the darkness. Show your servant the patch of light and life. This was blood magic, one of the most powerful and most costly form of magic in this world. Your faithful servant calls to you. Will you not answer her prayers? And yet there was no answer. She cut her other hand and painted more runes and glyphs on her face with her own blood, and continued her chanting. Please, my lord, I need you help. Show me the patch to victory against the great other. Show me Azor Ahai. Suddenly, the blood that covered the ground around her began to perk, and then it glowed brightly, as if there were fickles of gold within it. Melisandre's eyes darkened, and she heard a voice in her mind. Ava Lawler. She called out her god name. Hoa. Suddenly, she grasped her neck and her mid went blank. She opened her eyes and found herself in a different location. She looked around and saw that she was outside a large city. She recognized the city she was looking at from its tall towers visible behind its walls and magnificent gate. It was Mir. Suddenly, she felt another presence behind her, and when she looked back, she saw despair and darkness. Pure darkness as thin as paper, yet of an unfathomable depth. It had emerged from the ground in an ovoid shape with its lower section cut, a scene that evoked mystique with indescribable apprehension. A door? That's what she thought after seeing it, and after her heart beat once more, her thought was verified right. Drip. Something fell from the darkness. The instant she realized what it was. Hi. She let out a piercing shriek. An existence that no mortal could overcome. Red robes swayed like turbid flames inside the hollow orbits of the white skull. As it looked at her, she felt that it was staring coldly at its prey. In its hand, devoid of skin and flesh, was a sacred yet fearsome staff of sovereign beauty. It was as though death itself, draped in an ornate, jet-black robe, was born into this world with darkness from another world. The air froze in the blink of an eye. The chill she felt in her bones was enough to make even the strongest of life forces to be extinguished. It was as if time itself had frozen before the advent of an absolute being. Is this the great other? Melisandre thought, so after she saw an existence that was truly the embodiment of death. But a soft voice, filled with warmth, whispered in her ears Ain's old gown. She could feel her courage return to her by hearing that voice. She did not need to ask who it was. It must have been the voice of Lawler, giving his servant courage before the enemy. The embodiment of death turned its attention toward her. She could feel it was looking directly at her. It extended its hand as if to grab her neck, but right before it could, another hand grabbed her from behind and pulled her within darkness. She felt the scene around her change. Now she found herself in an open plain. But it was no ordinary plain. It was not covered in grass, but corpses. At one side, there were thousands of soldiers screaming in horror and running away, while on the other, she saw thousands of beasts. The beasts she saw were not native to this world. They had 6 limbs. Their skin was black and seemed to be as tough as steel. They had no visible eyes, but their sharp teeth and claws was wet with blood, and whenever they opened their mouth, a fire as red as hell could be seen in it. They were no beast of this world. They were demons. Demons made with fire and summoned from the depths of hell. When she looked at the other side of the battlefield, she saw the soldiers who were being slaughtered by those demons were wearing the red cloak of Lannisters and holding their banners. What is going on here? The scene around her changed again, and this time she found herself in another strange plain. She looked around and saw that one side of plain was covered in ice and snow, while the other part was covered in fire. A battlefield of fire and ice. That's what she thought to herself the moment she saw this. Suddenly, she heard a terrible roar from the battlefield of ice, and when she looked around, she saw a great dragon roaring in the sky. But it was no Valyrian dragon, for it did not breathe fire. No, this dragon was made of living ice, and its size was much bigger than any Valyrian dragon she heard of. It opened its massive jaw, and from within them, it released a storm of ice and snow. Suddenly, she felt another presence behind her. She saw that, at some distance away, within the battlefield of fire, a dark figure, wearing black armor and robe was standing. She could not determine who it was, or if it was a man or woman, but its body was covered in a great flame, but it did not look to be hurt from it, and its eyes seemed to gleam with a green fire. It raised its hand to the sky, and from the heavens, a great fire descended on the land that covered it with fire and drew away the storm of ice and snow. Is this the champion of fire? The one who would lead us against the darkness? At this moment, her vision were terminated, and she woke up again at her room in Dragonstone. She was terrified by the sights she had seen in her visions, but now she was confident that her instincts were right. The great war was coming, and Azor Ahai would lead them to victory. Beyond the wall slashed the cave of the three-eyed raven. There was a great and ancient wirewood tree. Beneath it was a large cave. The entrance was a cleft in a wooded hillside, halfway up, between some weirwood trees. It was warded so that dead men, such as whites, cannot enter. Another way in was a back door 3 leagues north, down a sinkhole. Under the hill is a vast, silent cave system extending far below and home to more than 60 living singers, the children of the forest and the bones of thousands dead. Its cramped and branching tunnels are full of weirwood roots. One echoing cavern is as large as the great hall of Winterfell and contains stalagmites and stalactites. Further on, the passage is littered with bones of birds and beasts, children of the forest and giants. Skulls of various creatures are placed in stone niches in the walls. The cave has chambers full of bones, shafts that plunge deep into the earth, and a place where the skeletons of gigantic bats hang upside down from the ceiling. Murders of ravens live within the cave. The route steeply descends to a great cavern opening on a black abyss, with a swift river 600 feet below. Near a natural bridge across the abyss is the three-eyed crow, the last green seer, sitting on a throne of woven weirwood root. No sunlight, moonlight, or starlight reaches the caves beneath the hill. Its inhabitants eat 100 kinds of mushrooms, as well as blind white fish swimming in the black river. Cheese and milk is made from goats sharing the caves with the singers, and oats, barleycorn, and dried fruit are also available. This cave was home to one of the last remaining pockets of the children of the forest, the eldest race that has ever walked this world, and the last of the green seer who was known as Three-Eyed Raven. His true identity at the past was someone else entirely. Ser Brynden Rivers, called Lord Bloodraven, was the bastard son of King Aegon IV Targaryen by his 6th mistress, Melissa Blackwood. He had 2 older sisters, Maya and Gwynis, and numerous half-siblings. As his mother was highborn, Brynden was counted among the great bastards. Like his bastard siblings, Brynden was legitimized by King Aegon IV in 184 AC. Brynden's personal arms were a white dragon with red eyes breathing red flame on a black field. Brendan was a Targaryen loyalist during the Blackfire rebellions. He served as the hand of the king to King Aerys I Targaryen and King Mikar I Targaryen. He was eventually sent to the Night's Watch by King Aegon V Targaryen, where he rose to the position of Lord Commander in 239 AC. But in the year of 259 AC, he disappeared while ranging beyond the wall. Unknown to others who thought he was killed by the wildlings and giants, he was actually taken in by the children of the forest, who helped him utilize his magical abilities and made him to become the Three-Eyed Raven. But his time was coming to an end. He saw it in the vision that the long night was coming. He knew that the Night King and his White Walkers were awakened from their sleep, and he knew that the living would need a new Green Seer with them to help them in the coming Great War. That was why he spent the last several months connecting his mind to that of Brandon Stark, his successor, and guided him to the north. Bran had yet to arrive in the cave, so he was sitting in his seat and having visions all around the world when suddenly, the Three-Eyed Raven screamed, and the children who heard his voice came running toward him. What happened? Why were you screaming? He placed his hand on his hearth and tried to calm his gasping. Something is wrong. I don't know what or why, but a moment ago I felt the world screamed. What do you mean? I don't know. I was watching the past and present through the trees, when suddenly I felt a power coursing in the world, affecting everything. It was a power so great and evil that I felt the world screamed when it was exposed to it. The children looked at each other nervously. If the Three-Eyed Raven said so, then it must be the truth. What could have caused this? I don't know yet, but we must hurry. The sooner Bran gets here, the better. We can't rest, because the dead won't. Fist of the First Men. The Fist of the First Men is a hill found beyond the wall in the haunted forest. The Fist was built by the first men in the Dawn Age. Some of its stone ring walls still remained. The Fist is located next to the Milkwater, surrounded by the haunted forest. The hill offers commanding views, with the slopes at a dangerous angle to the north and west, and only slightly less dangerous to east. There is a ring wall of chest-high gray stone that crowns the top of the steep, stony hill. At the foot of the hill there is a brook. The Night's Watch make their camp here while searching for the wildling masses during the Great Ranging. Here they hope to find what happened to the first ranger, Benjen Stark, and from here they hope to stop any march on the wall. But it was neither the wildling horde nor the first ranger who found them, but something far, far worse. While waiting for the last of the search parties to return to decide on a plan of action regarding the wildlings, the Watch were attacked by hundreds of whites, both human and animal. Their volleys of arrows had no effect against the undead attackers, so Lord Commander Mormont ordered them to use fire arrows, slowing the whites, but not stopping them. The Watch was quickly overrun, but Mormont was able to form up about 50 survivors to break out of the Fist. After a crushing defeat, the majority of the Night's Watch who fought on the Fist were slain by the insurmountable odds. While the survivors fled, the undead army and the White Walkers stood still at the Fist, where hundreds of Night Watch brothers were killed by them. The battle against the living was completely one-sided. Suddenly another figure, riding a dead horse, appeared behind them. The White Walkers turned their attention to one who arrived and stood aside. The one riding a dead horse was undoubtedly a White Walker, but one feature differed him from the others. Unlike other White Walkers who had snow-colored hair on their head, this one had no hair. Instead, its head was adorned with several small ice horns, forming a natural crown on its head. It was the Night King, first of the White Walkers and the leader of the army of the dead. The Night King looked at the corpses of the Night Watch fallen rangers, and then he activated his magic. He raised his hand slowly, and they all stood up at once. Hundreds were now added to his army, making his army numbers up to the thousands. Suddenly, he felt something strange was happening. For some reason, he felt that his necromantic powers were increased. And that was when he felt another being presence nearby. The ground beneath his feet shook, and a crack was opened in it. The corpse of one of the dead rangers, that the crack on the earth appeared beneath it, was engulfed by a black mist that appeared out of nowhere and covered its body and then entered it. The dead ranger slowly stood up, like a white, and moved with a grumbling sound. Black liquid came out of its mouth endlessly and covered its entire body. And then it began to distort into a human form. After a few seconds, the black liquid receded, and what stood in front of him was about 230 centimeters tall, Its body was larger and no longer looked like a human or a wight. Saying it was a beast was more fitting. In its left hand was a tower shield that covered 3/4 of its body, and in its right hand it held a serrated sword. The sword was coated with waves of terrifying red and black fog, agitating the surrounding like a constant heartbeat. Its huge body wore a body armor made of black metal with red bloodlines engraved on it. The armor had sharp thorns everywhere and looked like the incarnation of violence. 2 demonic horns emerged from the helmet, with the face being visible underneath. It was a disgusting, rotted face whose empty eye sockets were filled with hate and killing intent, glowing with a flashing red light. With its tattered black robe flapping in the wind, the Death Knight was the most fitting name for this undead creature. Ah-hey-ah-ha! It was a deafening roar, filled with malice and hatred for the living. The Death Knight, that was wildly and naturally spawned, looked around, but it did not find any living being to kill nearby, only other undead beings. And then, it locked its eyes with that of the Night King. The Night King had never seen such a creature before, but his instinct and senses told him that it was also an undead being, so he did not show any hostility toward it. He stepped slowly toward the Death Knight, who was still looking at him with its red eyes. The Night King extended his index finger toward the Death Knight. The Death Knight, unsure of the meaning behind his behavior, extended his index finger toward the Night King as well. Their fingers touched each other, and in that moment, oh ha ha ha, the Death Knight felt its body was being covered by a chill. Even thought it had immunity to cold like most other undead beings. The red color of its eyes and bloodline on its armor vanished, and was replaced with a blue color. The Night King looked at it with satisfaction, and then Death Knight, that was taken over by the Night King power, knelt in submission. The Night King smiled in his cold, icy heart, and when he looked around he smiled again. There were a few more new undead beings, similar to Death Knight, that had emerged from the ground. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to support the writer. Like, sub, and share the video for more awesome stories. See you in the next video.